Chapter 4175. Hearing Wang Yanhan's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze changed slightly. Thinking about it this way, it was indeed very reasonable. You should know that the cultivators in the upper realm, other than the younger ones, are all stronger than the cultivators in the lower realm. In fact, they are much stronger than the cultivators in the lower realm. If the cultivators from the upper realm go to the lower realm, who in the lower realm would be their match? Because of this, it would only destroy the balance in the lower realm. Therefore, there is a rule that the cultivators from the upper realm cannot go to the lower realm as they wish. However, the people from the upper realm would not want to go to the lower realm. After all, there is nothing better than the upper realm. On the contrary, it is very backward. Wang Yanhan explained. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly, but still did not give up. Then under what circumstances can one go to the lower realm? This is very troublesome. First, one must stay in the upper realm for a long time and pass the examination of the upper realm's cultivators union before one can go to the lower realm. If not, I would have gone back to see my brother long ago. However, looking at the current situation, I can only wait for him to go to the upper realm to meet up with him. So troublesome. Bailey Hongzhuang's clear eyes were filled with doubt. Previously, when she heard A.O. Lingxiao say that going to the lower realm was not so troublesome, this Wang Yanhan should not have the need to lie to her. It is so troublesome. A.O. Lingxiao's expression was filled with helplessness. Other than that, there is another possibility. However, it has nothing to do with us. What is it? I heard that the people from the upper realm's big forces can go to the lower realm as they wish, because the balance in the lower realm is also controlled by them. However, they belong to a big force and have their own restrictions. Therefore, after going to the lower realm, they will not run amok. Wang Yanhan slowly said. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. No wonder A.O. Lingxiao could go to the lower realm directly. It was related to his identity. Looking at it, the possibility of her going to the lower realm was very slim. Since it is so, then I only have one method. That is to go to the D family. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix-like eyes narrowed. She had no way to ascertain when Beichun would head to the upper realm, but she was certain that Beichun would definitely return to the Supreme D clan. After all, it was very likely that his family was located there. As long as she waited there, she would definitely see Beichun. Senior brother Wang Yan, do you know that there's a D clan in the upper realm? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Wang Yanhan nodded slightly. After some thought, he said, I think I've heard of it before. It's a top-notch clan, right? Why are you asking this? Then do you know where the D family is? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. As long as she could find the D family, she would be able to reunite with Beichun sooner or later. I don't know about that. Wang Yanhan shook his head. This kind of great power is really too far away from us. I've only heard of its existence like a story, but it's only limited to the existence of this family. Other than that, I don't know anything about them. Then is there any way to find out? Bailey Hongzhuang asked unwillingly. Chapter 4176. Little junior sister, with our current strength, it's basically impossible for us to come into contact with such a large power. Moreover, we are surrounded by cultivators who are similar to us. I'm afraid that the information they know is more or less the same as us. They only feel that such a large power is unreachable and they're unable to understand it. I heard that such a large power has a very strong, invisible barrier. If there is no one leading the way, it's basically impossible for ordinary people to find it. Why are you looking for the D family? Wang Yanhan's face was filled with confusion. He completely couldn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang had just come to the upper realm. Logically speaking, such a large power like the D family shouldn't have any connection with her. However, she had been trying to find the D family. This was really too strange. The reason why I came to the upper realm was completely by accident. My husband and my friends are still in the lower realm. They don't even know that I'm here. I'm sure that they are looking for me now. Previously, we had heard of the D family. I feel that if I go near them, they might be able to reunite when they come to the upper realm in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang's reply was half true and half false. Right now, they weren't completely sure that Beichun was a member of the D family. Before they were sure, it was better not to say anything. I see. Wang Yanhan finally understood. I didn't expect that little junior sister is already married. I'm sure that the other party must be a very outstanding young talent. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Indeed, little junior sister, I understand your anxious feelings. However, there is no other way for now. Think about it. Since you are unable to find the D family, it would be similarly difficult for them to find you when they come. Therefore, why don't you recuperate first and slowly think of a way in the future? I believe that there will be a day when you two will reunite. Wang Yanhan smiled and said, Thank you, senior brother. I hope so. After Wang Yanhan left, Bailey Hongzhuang's face revealed a depressed expression. When she thought of Beichen's expression when he thought that she might have died, she couldn't help but worry. Furthermore, judging from the situation at that time, there were definitely still people alive in the Crimson Moon sect. Once these people returned, the news of his death would basically be confirmed by them. Under such circumstances, Beichen would definitely want to avenge him. In that case, not only would Beichen be in danger, but he also didn't know when he would come to the upper realms. I never thought that things would turn out like this. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed faintly, her expression full of helplessness. At this moment, she suddenly felt a slight movement from the Chaos Ring. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately entered the Chaos Ring. As expected, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately noticed that Xiao He and Xiao Bai had woken up. However, Baisher was still unconscious and showed no signs of waking up. Master! Xiao He and Xiao Bai were overjoyed to see Bailey Hongzhuang. Master, you're still alive. That's great. The two beasts heaved a sigh of relief. They had thought that they were all dead from their previous miserable state. They never thought that everyone was still alive. That was great. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. That's right. It's a good thing that we're still alive. Chapter 41-77. I'm fine now. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You're still worried about me. You should be worried about yourselves now. Your injuries are very serious as well. Even though I've already treated you, you'll still need some time to fully recover. There's no need to rush it. Hearing this, Xiao He and Xiao Bai appeared very carefree. As long as we're still alive, it's not a big deal. This situation was much better than what they had imagined. At least everyone was still alive. Injuries were a common occurrence. They had suffered many injuries on a daily basis and were already used to it. However, Xiao He's gaze turned towards Baisher. Master, why hasn't there been any movement from Baisher even though we've already awakened? Logically speaking, Baisher's injuries should have been about the same as theirs. Since they had already awakened, Baisher should be more or less awake as well. However, based on Baisher's current condition, it was clear that he did not show any signs of awakening. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but turn towards Baisher. Her expression was filled with deep thought. I've already checked on Baisher's condition. His injuries are very serious, but they're not life-threatening. As for the fact that he has not shown any signs of awakening, he should be about to break through. Baisher's cultivation speed has never been slow. This time, after absorbing the energy from the black pool, Baisher had even come into contact with the barrier to the starlight state. If this had been in the past, it would have taken some time for him to break through. However, he had been hovering on the brink of death in this battle. Perhaps Baisher had profited from this disaster and broken through. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's initial worries turned into pleasant surprise. So that's how it is. That's great. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. Even though they had been in great danger this time, it was a good thing that they had managed to avert disaster in the end. However, they had been forced to separate from Beichen. This was something that she could not do anything about. Master, what are you thinking about? Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's mood, Xiao He could not help but ask, did something happen that made you unhappy? Bailey Hongzhuang immediately told them about their current situation. After hearing everything, Xiao He and Xiao Bai could not help but be dumbfounded. They did not expect such a situation at all. In that case, we can only wait here for Beichen and the others to come? Not bad. According to my judgment, Beichen probably won't come alone. He will definitely wait for Xiren and Yingying to break through before coming. Although Yingying and the others are talented in cultivation, it will take some time for them to make a breakthrough. However, as long as we wait in Rome and city, they will come sooner or later. If only it were that simple. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head helplessly. This teleportation is random. I happen to be teleported to Rome and city. There's no way to determine which city Beichin and the others will be teleported to. If it wasn't a city, they probably wouldn't have come here. Only the D family is where Beichin will definitely go. She did not expect such a situation at all. Now, this was the only way she could think of. Xiao He and Xiao Bai could not help but be dumbfounded. In such a situation, they really could not think of a better way. Chapter 4178. By the way, do you know how we came to the Upper Realm? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai. This was something that she had never been able to figure out. Back then, she had thought that she was definitely going to die. She never thought that she would actually survive in the end. However, even after thinking about it for a long time, she still could not figure out how she had managed to accomplish all this. I don't know. Xiao He shook her head. I thought that I was going to die. I don't know what happened after that. I did notice a flash of white light at the time. Then, I was taken back into the chaos ring. However, I don't know what happened after that, said Xiao Bai. A flash of white light. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. A trace of astonishment appeared in her eyes. Xiao Bai nodded. That's right. There was a flash of white light. Although the scene was very chaotic, I still saw it clearly. Now that Xiao Bai has mentioned it, I remember that there was a flash of white light at the time. I thought that it was the light before death. Xiao He spread her hands and said innocently, It looks like that flash of white light saved us. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. But what was that white light? Xiao He and Xiao Bai shook their heads. They did not know either. They only remembered that something like that had happened before. Bailey Hongzhuang kept thinking. Usually, there was no such thing as a white light around her. Moreover, this white light had saved them, so it was obviously a kind gesture. Not only that, this white light should be very powerful. Otherwise, it would not have been able to save them. After some thought, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but turn her gaze to the unconscious white dragon not far away. She said, Do you think this white light has something to do with the white dragon? As Bailey Hongzhuang spoke, Xiao He and Xiao Bai could not help but look at each other. Then, they nodded and said, That is indeed possible. The white dragon is so powerful. It would have been able to take us away under those circumstances. However, the white dragon was already unconscious. How could it have taken us away at the critical moment? We can't say for sure now. We will know once the white dragon awakens. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. This was the only possibility that she could think of at the moment. Apart from this, she really could not imagine where the white light had come from. Let's hope that the white lion and the white dragon will wake up soon, Xiao He said with a smile. No matter what, they were in a good situation now. They just needed some time to regroup. In the following days, Bailey Hongzhuang recuperated and rested in the inn. After Xiao He and Xiao Bai woke up, they recovered very quickly under Bailey Hongzhuang's treatment. However, the white lion and the white dragon were still in a deep sleep. They showed no signs of waking up at all. After Di Beichun arrived in the upper realm, he immediately began to search for Bailey Hongzhuang. However, after asking around, he discovered that not a single cultivator had come to the upper realm before his arrival. This answer made him feel very strange. He had clearly seen Bailey Hongzhuang's hairpin. It cannot be fake. However, there was no need for her to lie to him. This made him feel very helpless. Chapter 4179. It turned out that the entrance to the upper realm was random. It seemed that Hongzhuang had probably arrived at a different city from him. That was why he did not see Hongzhuang's figure. This made his originally very depressed mood a little better. At least this proved that there was a high chance that Hongzhuang was fine. He just had to go to a few more cities in the upper realm to find Hongzhuang. This was nothing to him. As long as he could find Hongzhuang, it was worth it no matter how much effort he had to put in. After understanding this point, Di Beichun began to embark on the journey to find Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the upper realm was very big and it was not easy to find Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichun was confident. As Bailey Hongzhuang's injuries gradually healed, she began to be curious about the upper realm. Originally, she had always been curious about whether the Bailey family still existed in the Shangxian continent after 1,000 years. Therefore, she deliberately asked Wang Yanhan. Unfortunately, Wang Yanhan had never heard of the Bailey family, so she could not confirm. Although it was now 1,000 years later and she had nothing to do with the Bailey family, she only hoped that the Bailey family still existed. As long as she thought of such a place, she would feel a sense of familiarity in her heart. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang walked out of the inn with interest. The sun shone on her body and gave her a burst of warmth. Her mood, which had been depressed for many days, became sunny at this moment. With a bright smile on her delicate face, Bailey Hongzhuang walked on the streets of Rong'an City. Looking at the extremely lively scene around her, her eyes became brighter and brighter. Master, the upper realm is even more lively than Penglai Island. Xiaohei's eyes flashed with surprise as she constantly looked around. Rong'an City was obviously a very big city. It was extremely lively, and there was an endless stream of people. However, there were only shops around and no stalls. Most of the shops sold food and treasures that cultivators needed for their cultivation. If it was in the lower realm, there would always be many delicious and fun things. However, there were even more things related to cultivators here. Walking on the road, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the passers-by were often armed, and the aura they released was very shocking. It was obvious how powerful these people were. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. The cultivators from the upper realm were indeed extraordinary. Her aura could be said to be at the bottom of this group of people, so she felt a lot of pressure. It seems that we really have to keep a low profile in the upper realm. Otherwise, if we accidentally offend someone, it won't be easy to clean up the mess. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. Normally, the probability of them getting into trouble was not small. There were enemies everywhere, and she was alone, so she had to be careful. Otherwise, if there was trouble, it would not be easy to deal with it. Master, don't worry. We won't get into trouble, Xiaohei said. Now, she also knew that the environment they were in was not easy. Naturally, she had to be more careful and not get into trouble. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. I know that you have always been very obedient. Chapter 4180. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. Di Yujue felt that it had been a long time since he had been so happy to return to his family. Although he had yet to reunite with Beichen, he believed that it was only a matter of time before he found Beichen. In the past, every time he returned, he would feel extremely depressed. Since the day Beichen disappeared, not only did he have to endure his own heartache, but he also had to face all kinds of pressure from his family. His parents' resentment towards him was imaginable. Most importantly, his wife was unwilling to see him. He had always loved Lin Yinxing deeply, but he had done something that hurt her the most. He was extremely regretful. Now that he had finally brought back news of their son, he hoped that Yinxing would be happy. When he thought that Yinxing might be happy because of this, the corners of his lips could not help but curl up. Even his brows became bright and sunny. When Di Lin Xian heard that Di Yujue had returned, a trace of joy appeared in his eyes. Then, his face darkened again. He still has the nerve to come back. Xiao Wanrong noticed the change in Di Lin Zhao's expression and could not help but roll her eyes. Old man, stop pretending. You're obviously very happy that Yujue is back. How am I very happy? Di Lin Xian raised an eyebrow. I can't wait for him to not come back. After you chased Yujue away the last time, he has been staying outside for a long time and has not come back. I don't care. You're not allowed to do that again. If you chase your son out and never come back, I'll see what you're going to do. Xiao Wanrong could not hide her dissatisfaction. You can't find your grandson. If you chase your son away, I'll see what you're going to do. A loving mother leads to a wastrel son. Di Lin Xian shook his head helplessly. I can't be bothered to talk to you. I don't understand how I gave birth to such an idiot. He even lost his own son. If word gets out, he'll be a joke. Think about me. I've been so powerful for so many years, but in the end, I was laughed at by everyone for what my stupid son did. Most importantly, my precious grandson is missing. How can I not be angry? then there's no use in scolding him. Xiao Wanrong's expression was full of helplessness. Do you think Yujue will feel good after such a thing happened? You don't have to say it. He's already blaming himself. So many years have passed, and Yujue has been searching all this time. What's the point of scolding him like this? It's all your fault. Di Lin Xian blew his beard and glared, the displeasure on his face still not dissipating. As long as I can't find my precious grandson, he will inevitably be scolded. Why is it all my fault? Xiao Wanrong couldn't help but ask when she saw that Di Lin Xian was talking about her again. Isn't it all because of your stupid son? Oh. Xiao Wanrong's voice suddenly rose. Then according to what you mean, could it be that I can give birth to him alone? I'm too lazy to talk to you. As soon as she finished speaking, Xiao Wanrong directly sat down and turned her face to the other side, clearly unwilling to pay any more attention to Di Lin Xian. After he noticed that Xiao Wanrong was angry, Di Lin Xian couldn't help but say, "All right, old woman, aren't I angry? You know my temper." Chapter 4181. Xiao Wanrong and Di Lin Xian had been together for so many years, so she knew his temper very well. He was stubborn on the outside, but soft on the inside. No matter what happened, he was unwilling to admit it, but he did not actually think that way. Ever since Di Yujue was chased away by Di Lin Xian, she could tell that he missed Di Yujue very much, even though he was unwilling to admit it. Every once in a while, he could not help but ask about Di Yujue. He had always been worried about him. However, every time Di Yujue returned, the old man would inevitably think of this matter again and chase Di Yujue away. It had been like this for the past few years. This time, Di Yujue had returned. When Di Lin Xian heard the news, he had clearly been exceptionally happy. However, when he saw that she was present, his expression immediately changed. She really could not do anything about this old man. It's fine if you bring this up in front of me, but please don't bring it up in front of my daughter-in-law. You clearly know how sad she is because of this. The two of them are not together because of this. If you keep bringing this up, won't you be poking at her heart? Xiao Wanrong sighed. They've been living very well in the past, but ever since this happened, everyone had a knot in their hearts. They only wanted to find their precious grandson. Logically speaking, with the Di family's abilities, it should not be too difficult. It was just a pity that he had gone to the lower world. It would be much more complicated to find him. They had not heard any news about their precious grandson for so many years, so they were actually very upset. Moreover, they all knew about their grandson's constitution. It had been over 20 years. Although they were unwilling to give up, they knew all too well what would happen once the cursed constitution flared up. As a result, they knew that the chances of finding him were just too slim. I understand. Di Linxian nodded and sighed. You should talk to Yinxing more when you're free. Yujue is indeed in the wrong, but he can't just ignore Yujue like this. That's true, but you don't understand how a mother feels when she loses her child. Actually, Yinxing has been suffering all these years. Alas, in the end, it's still Yujue's fault. See, wasn't I right? Di Lin Xian shrugged. It's all because of that stupid son of mine. Not only did he ruin my reputation, but he also made everyone suffer. Old man, don't you care about your face? How long has it been since you went out after this incident? How can I go out? Every time they ask me about my grandson's whereabouts, I can't answer. I might as well not go out. You say that Elder Su, the moment I went out, he kept telling me about his precious grandson's achievements. Isn't he deliberately trying to anger me? If it weren't for the fact that I don't know where my precious grandson ended up, how could he be worse than my grandson? Di Linxian couldn't help but blow his beard and glare. Xiao Wanrong obviously knew about this situation and couldn't help but sigh. Let's not talk about anything else. When Yujue comes over in a while, don't scold him anymore. Just bear with it. Chapter 4182. Di Linxian remained silent. It wasn't that he wanted to scold Yujue on purpose every time, but he really couldn't control his temper every time this matter was brought up. Not long after, Di Yujue walked over. Father, mother. Di Yujue bowed respectfully to the two of them. Xiao Wanrong nodded and quickly walked in front of Di Yujue. Yujue, looking at you, you've lost a lot of weight. You've been working hard recently, haven't you? Xiao Wanrong's face was full of concern. Although she complained that Di Yujue had lost her precious grandson, she also felt very sorry for her son. For the past 20 years, her son had been running around outside tirelessly and had not relaxed at all. She also felt sorry for him. While Xiao Wanrong was speaking, Di Linxian could not help but size up Di Yujue, especially when he found that the latter had indeed lost a lot of weight. He could not help but frown. Deep in his eyes were concern and worry. "Mother, I'm fine." Di Yujue shook his head with a faint smile on his face. "How have you been recently?" "We're all fine." Xiao Wanrong smiled faintly. "Don't be in a hurry to leave this time. You've been away from home all these years, and it's been very tiring for you. This time, you should rest at home for a while." Di Yujue shook his head. "I still have to go out again." Di Linxian had not spoken at first, but when he heard that Xiao Wanrong wanted Di Yujue to stay at home for a while, he heaved a sigh of relief. In fact, it was not his intention to chase his son out. However, when he heard that Di Yujue had actually rejected him, he could not help but feel even angrier. "You still have a nerve to come back? Didn't you say that you wouldn't come back if you couldn't find your grandson?" Di Linxian asked. "Old man." Xiao Wanrong tugged at Di Linxian, her eyes full of resentment. She had just warned this old man, but she did not expect him to say such things in the blink of an eye. It wasn't easy for her son to come back. She wanted to see Di Yujue more. He didn't think that Di Linxian would say something like that. Wasn't he trying to chase him away? If it was any other time, Di Yujue would have remained silent upon hearing Di Linxuan's words. However, a smile appeared on his face at this moment. "Father, mother, I've finally found Beichen's whereabouts," Di Yujue said with a smile. Following Di Yujue's words, there was a moment of silence in the room. Di Linxian and Xiao Wanrong couldn't help but look at each other. Both of their eyes were filled with astonishment. "What did you just say?" Di Linxian's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes were filled with nervousness and doubt. "Say that again." Xiao Wanrong hurriedly grabbed Di Yujue's hand, looking nervous and anxious. "Yujue, did you just say that you found the whereabouts of my grandson?" Di Yujue nodded. "That's right. Then where is he? Is he outside?" As she spoke, Xiao Wanrong could not help but walk out of the room. Even Di Linxian could not help but walk out as well. This news was simply too surprising. After searching for so many years, they had never let go of the obsession in their hearts. However, they also knew that the chances of finding him were getting smaller and smaller. Chapter 4183. "Father, mother, he didn't come back with me," Di Yujue hurriedly explained when he saw how anxious his parents were. Hearing this, Di Linxian and Xia Wanrong finally withdrew their gazes from outside the house and looked at Di Yujue in confusion. "What do you mean? It wasn't easy to find him. Why didn't you bring him back?" "Some unforeseen event happened. Listen to me slowly." "All right, go ahead." Di Linxian and Xiao Wanrong looked at Di Yujue together, their eyes filled with anticipation. Di Yujue also knew that his parents had always been concerned about Di Beichen's whereabouts, so he immediately told them everything that had happened after he went out this time. "You mean to say that you were just one step away from bringing my precious grandson back?" Di Linxian raised his eyebrows, his face filled with displeasure. "Why can't you be a little faster? I'm really going to be angered to death by you. I've cultivated for so many years for nothing." "Old man, why are you blaming Yujue again? He didn't want this to happen either." Xiao Wanrong hurriedly said, "No matter what, at least this time, Yujue went out and found Beichen. Although we don't know where Beichen is now, since he's come to the upper realm, there are only a few cities at the entrance. As long as we send people over, we should be able to find him very quickly." Di Yujue nodded. "I think so too. I've come back this time to send people to the various cities to find Beichen. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and go." Di Linxian was clearly an impatient person. He had waited for so many years and finally found his grandson's whereabouts with great difficulty. He really hated that he couldn't fly over to find Di Beichen. "I have to draw a portrait first. That way, it'll be easier for everyone to find him." "Then hurry up and draw." Xiao Wanrong and Di Yujue couldn't help but look at each other when they saw Di Lin Xian's anxious appearance. Their expressions were filled with amusement. In fact, even though Di Lin Xian often scolded him, Di Yujue had never taken it to heart. He knew his father's personality very well. He was used to it since he was young. Yujue, hurry up and draw. I really want to see what our grandson looks like. Xiao Wanrong's eyes were also filled with interest. Ever since they had seen Di Beichun when he was young, they had not seen Di Beichun again for many years. They did not know what Di Beichun looked like now, so they were very curious. Good. I'll do it right away. Di Yujue nodded. He immediately took out a pen and paper and prepared to draw Di Beichun's portrait. All these years, he had never drunk to his heart's content until he met Di Beichun. He had always treated Di Beichun as a close friend, so he had a deep impression of Di Beichun's appearance. Xiao Wanrong clapped her hands. Her eyes were filled with joy as she hurriedly said, "Oh right, should we inform Yanqing now? Yanqing will definitely be very happy when she finds out." "Mother, let me tell Yanqing about this matter later," Di Beichun said slowly. All these years, Lin Yanqing had never been willing to forgive him. He had also not gotten along well with Lin Yanqing for a long time. This time, he brought this news back with the hope that he could tell Lin Yanqing properly. He could imagine how happy Lin Yanqing would be after hearing this news. He also hoped that Lin Yanqing would forgive him. Chapter 4184. Di Yujue began to draw Di Beichun's appearance. He knew that the Di Beichun he had met before was in disguise. He knew this when he saw Xiren and Shangwan Yingying. After all, the Xiren and Shangwan Yingying he had met before did not look like this. On the way to find Di Beichun, he had learned a lot about Di Beichun from Xiren and Shangwan Yingying. He also had a certain understanding of Di Beichun's appearance. Fortunately, Xiren had drawn Di Beichun's appearance before. He had already imprinted it deeply in his heart. At this moment, he had to draw a few more portraits so that it would be easier for his subordinates to find him. As Di Yujue drew stroke by stroke, Di Beichun's appearance slowly appeared. Di Lin Xian and Xiao Wanrong had been standing by the side, only wanting to see how their precious grandson looked like. At this moment, when they saw the outline of Di Yujue's face, the joy in their eyes grew stronger. Yes, this appearance. He's really handsome. Xiao Wanrong's face was filled with a wide smile. It seems that Beichun has inherited your and Yanqing's good points. He's much better looking than any of the juniors I've seen all these years. When Di Lin Xian noticed the handsome young man in the portrait, the smile in his eyes widened. He could not help but say, "Isn't this all because he has inherited my good points? Back then, I was very famous in the upper realm. Many girls liked me." "Old man, stop bragging." Xiao Wanrong glanced at Di Lin Xian. "Why don't you take a look at yourself now? What's wrong with me now?" Di Lin Xian was very dissatisfied. "Look at Yujue. Isn't it because of me?" When Di Yujue heard Di Lin Xuan's narcissistic words, he couldn't help but raise his head and a smile appeared on his face. Ever since Beichun had disappeared, he had not seen Di Lin Xian so happy for a long time. Fortunately, he had brought back news of Di Beichun this time. When Di Beichun reunited with them, he could imagine how happy Di Lin Xian and the others would be. Because of his mistake, his family had been depressed and sad for so many years. He only hoped that he could find Di Beichun as soon as possible so that they could be reunited. That was clearly because of me. Fortunately, you pestered me to marry you back then. Otherwise, I really don't know what your child looks like now. Xiao Wanrong rolled her eyes at Di Lin Xian, but a deep smile appeared on her face. "You were the one who begged me to marry you, didn't you?" Xiao Wanrong glared and said, "Yujue, you be the judge." "Father, mother, I wasn't even born at that time. I can't say for sure." Di Yujue shrugged. His deep eyes were as bright as the stars. They had not bickered like this for a very long time. He really missed it when he saw it again. Xiao Wanrong and Di Lin Xian glared at each other when they heard that. Clearly, they were certain that the other party was the one who had pursued them. "That's right." "Father, mother, I have something important to tell you," Di Yujue suddenly said. "What is it?" Di Lin Xian and Xiao Wanrong stopped joking. Instead, they were very serious. Now, as long as it was related to Di Bei-chun, it was absolutely important to them. Chapter 4185. Bei-chun is already married, and his wife is also very outstanding. Following Di Yujue's words, Di Linxian and Xiao Wanrong could not help but stare blankly. A thick sense of astonishment surfaced on their faces. He's already married? Di Yujue nodded slightly. As you know, Bei-chun has a cursed body, and his legs were originally crippled. Fortunately, he met Bailey Hongzhuang, who helped him change his physique and allowed him to grow until now. Otherwise, with the tyranny of the cursed body and the medical skills of the lower realm, I'm afraid that we really wouldn't be able to find him. Is our granddaughter-in-law's name Bailey Hongzhuang? Xiao Wanrong's eyes lit up. I didn't expect our grandson to be so fast. He didn't even need our help to arrange it, and has already helped us to marry our granddaughter-in-law. This is great news. That's right. Her name is Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Yujue smiled faintly. I've seen them before, but they had disguised themselves at that time, so I didn't recognize them. According to the situation that I understood at that time, the husband and wife have a very good relationship. They had previously gone to the Penglai Palace to help Bei-chun find a medicine to treat his illness. This Miss Bailey is wholeheartedly devoted to Bei-chun. As a father, Di Yujue only wished for his son to be happy. Furthermore, he had not been able to take care of Di Bei-chun all these years. He did not know how to make up for the guilt in his heart. Now that Bei-chun was so sincere to his wife, he naturally hoped that everyone in the family would agree. However, according to his judgment, Di Linxian and Xiao Wanrong did not seem like people who would object. As expected, I didn't expect this granddaughter-in-law to be so amazing. In this case, Bei-chun's survival is entirely thanks to granddaughter-in-law. Xiao Wanrong immediately understood and couldn't help but clap her hands. Io, our grandson is really lucky. He happened to find a wife with such brilliant medical skills. This is simply our family's fortune. Looking at Xiao Wanrong's appearance, Di Yujue smiled and nodded. Yes, it's all thanks to Miss Bailey. Old man, why aren't you saying anything? Cough, cough. Di Linxian coughed lightly and said, How long have they been married? Is there any news about my great-grandson? Di Yujue and Xiao Wanrong couldn't help but be stunned when they heard that. When they realized what Di Linxian had said, they couldn't help but laugh. Old man, you're thinking too far ahead. Di Linxuan's face stiffened. What do you mean by far? Wouldn't it be much faster if they got married? How long has it been since we had a baby? Father, this matter will have to wait until we find Bei-chun and Hongzhuang before you ask them. Di Yujue spoke up. Di Linxian nodded. Then why aren't you drawing quickly? Yujue, how has Bei-chun been all these years? Has he suffered? Bei-chun's luck is pretty good. He was picked up by the sect master of the Tiangang sect in the lower realm. He raised him as his own grandson and later handed the entire Tiangang sect to Bei-chun. Di Yujue's expression softened. This was something he was extremely grateful for. If Bei-chun had suffered a lot all these years, then he really didn't know how to face it. Fortunately, the heavens pitted Bei-chun and allowed him to meet Situ Yan. All these years, he had been living very well, and Situ Yan had raised him very well. Chapter 4186. When the time comes, we have to thank them properly. Di Linxuan's expression was serious. After so many years, we owe them a lot. They even let Bei-chun become the sect leader. They really treat us with sincerity. If they were not sure whether they really took care of Di Bei-chun before, then from the fact that they were willing to hand over the position of sect leader to Di Bei-chun, they could tell that they really treated Di Bei-chun as their grandson. Otherwise, he would not have handed over his sect to Di Bei-chun. Di Yujue nodded slightly. I've already expressed my gratitude to them. Tiangang sect is also a very powerful sect in the lower realm, so we don't have to worry about Bei-chun being taken advantage of in the past. With such an identity, I'm sure he's living well in the past. Not only that, sect leader Situ is Hongzhuang's grandfather. Speaking of which, their marriage is really a coincidence. No wonder. Xiao Wanrong suddenly understood. In that case, our granddaughter-in-law's family has done us a great favor. We must treat our granddaughter-in-law well in the future and not let Beichen bully our granddaughter-in-law. That's a must. Di Linchuan's voice was loud and clear. Our D family always knows how to repay kindness. With such a great favor, Beichen must treat her well for the rest of his life. Don't worry, their relationship is very good. According to the situation I understand, Beichen will not treat Hong Zhuang badly. The great-grandson, Yuan should not be too far away. Di Yujue's face was filled with a joyful smile. Although they did not participate in Di Beichen's marriage, they were very happy to know that the husband and wife were harmonious and happy. After Di Yujue drew a few portraits, he kept one and kept it in his Chinquan bag. After instructing people to look for Di Beichen in all the major cities, he went to his residence. Although it was his residence, he had not been here for a long time. When he thought of his wife, Di Yujue felt extremely helpless. Ever since Di Beichen disappeared, Lin Yinqing had been unwilling to talk to him. Every time she saw him, she couldn't help but cry. Actually, he knew that Yinqing had deep feelings for him. When she was pregnant, Yinqing had been looking forward to seeing Beichen. Ever since she found out that Beichen possessed the cursed physique, Yinqing had paid special attention to Beichen. Later on, Beichen had disappeared, so it was easy to imagine how great of a blow it was to her. Usually, when he did not appear, Yinqing would often think of this matter. Once he appeared, it would undoubtedly remind her of this matter. As time passed, he didn't dare rashly appear before Yinqing, so as to avoid hurting her feelings. However, this time, he could finally bring good news to Yinqing. When he thought about how happy Yinqing might look, he felt a burst of joy in his heart. Inside the room, a woman in plain robes was seated on the bed as she looked out the window. The woman was extremely beautiful, like a lotus flower that had just emerged from the water. Her skin was delicate, while her facial features were peerlessly exquisite. Anyone who laid eyes on her would believe that she was a peerless beauty. However, the space between the woman's brows was filled with worry while her eyes were filled with sorrow. At this moment, her expression was rather complicated as she stared out the window. She had heard that Di Yujue had returned. When she had first heard the news, she had been overjoyed. However, not long after, her happiness had turned into complicated feelings. Chapter 4187. Madam, now that the young master has returned, you shouldn't treat him so coldly anymore. It hasn't been easy for the young master all these years. In order to make you happy, he's tried everything. Besides, he hasn't returned for a very long time. If you continue to push the young master away, that won't do. The maidservant next to her noticed the complicated look on Lin Yunqing's face and could not help but voice her thoughts. She had been by Lin Yunqing's side since she was a child. Even though she was a maidservant, the two of them got along more like sisters. She knew very well that with Di Yujue's status, there were countless women who yearned for him. The madam may be a peerless beauty, but there were many other beauties in the upper realm as well. If the young master's feelings for the madam had not run so deep that he would not accept anyone else's feelings, the madam would not know what kind of situation she would be in. All these years, she had watched the madam push the young master away again and again. She could not help but worry. Lin Yinqing was silent. Her gaze was distant and complicated, making it impossible for anyone to see through her thoughts. Seeing this, the maidservant continued, Madam, actually, the young master was very upset about what had happened back then. This was definitely not what he wanted to see. Why are you doing this? The corners of Lin Yunqing's eyes were moist. How could she not be aware of all this? However, when she thought about how her infant child had wandered off to an unknown place, she could not help but feel her heart ache. Only a mother would be able to understand this. She understood Di Yujue's sincerity towards her and understood that Di Yujue's pain in his heart was no less than hers. However, after this incident, it was as if an irreparable crack had appeared between the two of them. As long as one looked at each other, one would be able to think of the most painful thing in one's heart. Every time she opened the wound, it would be filled with blood. This time, Di Yujue had been away for so long, and she was afraid. She was afraid that her actions over the years had hurt Diujue so much that he would no longer want to pay attention to her. Now that Diujue had clearly returned for a while, but he had not come to see her, she felt a little upset. So what if he's here? Lin Yunqing asked herself. Could it be that she could completely forget about this matter and never mention it again? She couldn't. She knew this all too well. Just as Lin Yunqing was pondering, Diujue's figure slowly appeared in her line of sight. He was still as elegant and handsome as ever. Just a glance from him was enough to make people blush and fluster. When the maidservant saw that Diujue had arrived, her face was filled with joy. "Madam, please don't drive young lord away this time." After whispering these words, the servant girl opened the door and welcomed Diujue in. Then she tactfully left. "Yunqing," Diujue called out softly, his deep eyes filled with tenderness and love. Even though Lin Yunqing had always been unwilling to talk to him, his feelings for her had never faded. "You're back," Lin Yunqing said slowly. Diujue nodded slightly. "I've been away for quite some time this time. You must be tired after being out for so many days. Let me pour you a cup of tea." Chapter 4188. When Diujue suddenly grabbed her hand, Lin Yunqing couldn't help but be stunned. She instinctively wanted to struggle free, but she soon relaxed. The maidservant was right. She could not continue on like this. At the end of the day, if Diujue had not doted on her so much, her situation in the D family would have changed. Most importantly, she loved Diujue. Diujue had naturally noticed Lin Yunqing's reaction, but he did not take it to heart. The doting look in his eyes was still as strong as ever. "Yunqing, I've been gone for so long this time, and I've finally found our son's whereabouts." Lin Yunqing couldn't help but be stunned when she heard this. The teacup that she had just received immediately fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. The tea splashed on her skirt, but she didn't seem to notice at all. She just stared fixedly at Diujue. "Ujue, what did you just say?" "I said that I found our son's whereabouts. I've already sent people to search for him. I believe that it won't be long before we find him. When that time comes, our family will be reunited." Lin Yunqing covered her mouth with her hand. She could barely control her emotions and wanted to cry out in alarm. However, her eyes gradually moistened and hot tears rolled down her cheeks. "Are you telling the truth? Have you really found our son?" Diujue nodded affirmatively, but didn't hear wrong. "Everything I said is true." Tears flowed uncontrollably from the corners of her eyes. Lin Yunqing burst into tears in an instant, unable to control her emotions at all. It had been over 20 years. Ever since her child had gone missing, she had never been truly happy for a single day. As long as she thought that her child might have died or suffered all kinds of pain, her heart would ache to the extreme. However, now that Diujue had finally found her child's whereabouts, she was so excited and happy that she could not stop sobbing. Diujue could not help but pull her into his arms when he saw Lin Yunqing's surprised yet fragile look. He gently wiped away her tears. "Yunqing, don't cry. It wasn't easy for us to find Beichen. You should be happy." Lin Yunqing nodded. "Yes, I should be happy. I should be happy." Even so, Lin Yunqing couldn't help but shed tears. The greater the pain, the greater the surprise. "You said his name is Beichen?" "That's right. His name is now Beichen, Deep Beichen." "Then, is he doing well now?" Lin Yunqing's voice trembled slightly, and her expression was filled with hesitation and nervousness. After so many years, when she thought of the cursed body, she was almost certain that Deep Beichen was not still alive. However, Diujue telling her all this now proved that Deep Beichen was still alive. "He's doing very well. He hasn't suffered as much as we thought. He's a blessed child." Diujue knew that Lin Yunqing was most worried about whether Di Beichen had been doing well all these years, so he immediately told her the situation. After hearing everything, Lin Yunqing heaved a sigh of relief. "That's great. He's indeed a blessed child. He's still doing very well without us by his side. Yujue, tell me quickly, how did you find him? Why didn't you come back with him? Hurry up and tell me everything. I want to know everything about him." Chapter 4189. Lin Yinqing had never participated in Di Beichen's life over the years. Although she had missed it, she also wanted to understand what had happened to Di Beichen during the years she had missed. At least, this could make up for some of her regrets. Okay, I'll tell you everything I know. Di Yujue's face was filled with a faint smile. He could understand Lin Yunqing's emotions. In fact, when he knew that Di Beichen was his biological son, he also wanted to understand all of Di Beichen's past experiences. Therefore, whether it was in Tiangang sect or when he was traveling with Wenziren, he was learning about Di Bei City. This was undoubtedly extremely precious to him as a father. He could no longer participate in his past life. At least, he wanted to understand so that when he met Di Beichen in the future, he would not be so unfamiliar with him. After Di Yujue told Lin Yinqing all the things that happened after he left this time, Lin Yinqing's face gradually recovered. The worry between her eyebrows quietly faded and was replaced by a trace of joy and expectation. Then, Beichen and Hongzhuang have now come to the upper realm. Will they be in danger? Lin Yunqing's eyes were filled with concern. The upper realm was not like the lower realm. The cultivators here were extremely powerful. Di Beichen and Hongzhuang had obviously just obtained the authority to come here. If they got into trouble, they might lose their lives if they were not careful. Usually, the cultivators who just came to the lower realm were the easiest to pay with their lives. She did not want this to happen to Beichen and Hongzhuang. That was something she could not bear. You don't have to worry too much. Based on my understanding of them, their strength is also very outstanding. What's more, Beichen has obtained the inheritance of the Dark Force this time. His strength should have improved greatly. I believe that there shouldn't be any problem with the two of them being together. The people we've sent out will find them as soon as possible. Di Yujue was obviously full of confidence in Di Beichen. In fact, since the first time he saw Di Beichen, he felt that he was a very outstanding young man. Back then, Di Beichen and the others had just arrived at Penglai Island not long ago. Yet, they were able to gain a foothold in such a short period of time and become the most sought-after newcomers. From this, one could see how capable they were. Although the upper realm was filled with trials, he still believed that with their abilities, they would be able to solve them. Seeing that Di Yujue was so confident, Lin Yunqing's expression also relaxed a little. She knew that Di Yujue's vision had always been very accurate. Since he said so, it proved that Beichen and the others did indeed have the ability to deal with it. That's good. Why don't we go find them together? Lin Yinqing could not help but stand up. Her eyes were filled with anxiety. She could not wait to reach the city immediately and look for Di Beichen and Hongzhuang. Wait, Di Yujue said. Without waiting for Di Yujue to finish speaking, Lin Yinqing could not help but frown. Her expression was filled with pleading. Yujue, I really can't stay here. After so many years, I haven't heard the slightest bit of news about him. Now that I finally know that he has come to the upper realm to see you, how can I stay here and wait? I must go find him. Even if it's just a second earlier, it's still good. Chapter 4190. Yinqing, I'll go with you no matter which city you're going to look for him. Di Yujue's face was filled with a gentle and doting smile. He understood Lin Yunqing's feelings all too well. In fact, even he himself could not resist the urge to look for him. After all, that was their son. However, before you go, you should take a look at our son's portrait first. Otherwise, even if you see him, you won't be able to recognize him. Lin Yinqing was shocked when she heard Di Yujue's words. Following that, a look of ecstasy appeared on her face. You're not going to stop me. Why should I stop you? Di Yujue held Lin Yunqing's hand. It was my mistake that caused you and your son to be separated for so many years. Am I supposed to stop you from looking for him now? Don't forget, I'm his father. I care about him just as much and I want to see him. Tears flickered in Lin Yunqing's eyes. All the resentment she had felt towards Di Yujue over the years instantly dissipated into nothingness. Di Yujue had indeed made an unforgivable mistake back then. However, she had been punishing Di Yujue over the past 20 years because of this mistake. In fact, what she had done was very wrong as well. However, from the beginning to the end, Du had definitely taken care of her like this, causing her heart to be filled with warmth and at the same time, also filled with guilt. Lin Yinqing reached out to wipe the tears from the corner of her eyes. A smile then appeared on her face, and her eyes were filled with joy. Do you have a portrait of Beichen? He gently nodded. I had drawn a portrait of Beichen as soon as I got back. Father and mother have already met him, so I've specially brought a portrait for you to see. Quick, show it to me, Lin Yinqing said impatiently. All these years, she had always imagined how their child would look like, but she had never been able to imagine his exact features. She never thought that Du Jue would actually draw a portrait of Beichen. She was filled with anticipation. Looking at Lin Yinqing's impatient look, Du Jue immediately took out the portrait. When Lin Yinqing saw the outstanding man in the portrait, her eyes gradually changed, and her hands could not help but cover her mouth. These eyebrows, this nose, these facial lines, she suddenly felt that this should be the appearance of their child. All of this made her feel exceptionally familiar. This appearance clearly had the shadow of her and Du Jue. For more than 20 years, she had never been able to figure out Di Beichen's true appearance. Until this moment, she suddenly understood that this was their child. Du Jue was definitely not lying to her. Isn't he very handsome? Du Jue's lips curled up slightly. Di Beichen's appearance was truly a case of the student surpassing the master. Ever since he found out about Di Beichen's true appearance, he understood why the former had to disguise himself. With such an appearance, he was afraid that it would easily attract some trouble. Lin Yinqing nodded heavily and gazed deeply at the portrait. Her eyes were filled with a loving light. Very handsome, really very handsome. I heard that Hong Zhuang is also a rare beauty. However, when I met her at that time, she was also in disguise, so I don't know her true appearance. However, we'll know when we find them. I want to thank our daughter-in-law. If it wasn't for her by Beichen's side, I'm afraid that we would never be able to reunite with Beichen again. Chapter 4191. Although she had never met her daughter-in-law, Lin Yinqing had a good impression of her. This was because this daughter-in-law had saved her son. Not only that, Beichen was greatly indebted to his daughter-in-law's family. Hong Zhuang's family had taken care of Beichen so much. As Beichen's family, they should be grateful. Moreover, from Du Jue's description, she already understood that Bailey Hong Zhuang was definitely a good lady. Not only was she sincere to Beichen, but she was also willing to give up everything for Beichen. She must treat such a daughter-in-law well in the future. As she said this, Lin Yinqing could not help but look at Du Jue tentatively. She knew very well that although Miss Bailey had married Beichen and her status in the lower realm was not simple, there was still a gap between her and Beichen's status. With the D family status, if Beichen had grown up in the D family, his background would not have been suitable. However, she did not have such requirements for Beichen now. She hoped that the rest of the D family would not have such requirements as well. That's right, Du Jue nodded. We should really thank her properly. They were both sensible people. They would remember this kindness in their hearts and would definitely not treat Bailey Hong Zhuang unfairly. He knew that Lin Yinqing had deliberately asked this question to confirm this point. Obviously, the couple had the same idea. After understanding Du Jue's attitude, Lin Yinqing heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. The two of them chatted as they prepared for a while. Then, they left the D family and began to rush without stopping. After walking around the streets, Bailey Hong Zhuang realized that the currency in the upper realm had been converted into spiritual stones. No matter what one bought, one would use spiritual stones to calculate the price. This was because spiritual stones were something that every cultivator needed. It was undoubtedly very suitable to use them as currency. Gold coins could also be circulated, but gold coins were very expensive to buy spirit stones. Fortunately, I have given the prescription to the Penglai Palace. Now I still have a lot of spirit stones on hand. It will be enough for the time being. Bailey Hong Zhuang couldn't help but sigh. When she went out, she couldn't do anything without money. Fortunately, she didn't have to worry about this for the time being. However, not only did she need lodging, but she also needed spirit stones for her cultivation. The consumption rate was also very shocking. Previously, when she fainted, Wang Yanhan sent her to the inn and helped her find a doctor. These expenses were all borne by Wang Yanhan. She once wanted to return these spirit stones to Wang Yanhan, but she was rejected. According to Wang Yanhan, she had just arrived in the upper realm, so she wouldn't have many spirit stones in her possession. So, it was better to be frugal at this time. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if she needed them in the future. Wang Yanhan had already joined the forces of Rome and city. He could receive a lot of spirit stones every month, which was much more than the amount in the lower realm. In this regard, she could only keep this gratitude in her heart. When she first came to the upper realm, she was almost powerless to resist. Fortunately, she met Wang Yanhan. If she had met some evil people, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Fortunately, she was lucky enough to meet her senior brother after coming here. No matter what, I should do something. Chapter 4192. Master, do you have any ideas? Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughtful look, Xiao He couldn't help but ask. Xiao He knew her master's temperament very well. At this moment, her master's expression was obviously thinking about something. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I plan to draw an inscription and give it to senior brother Wang Yan. In these days of conversation with Wang Yanhan, she also learned that even in the upper realm, there were not many inscription masters. Now, her inscription technique had improved again. Although she hadn't used it for a while, she had never given up. After all, inscription technique could still play a big role in many cases. As far as she knew, Wang Yanhan also wanted to find an inscription master to help him inscribe on his weapon to improve the power of the weapon. However, there was only one inscription master in Rome and city. With Wang Yanhan's current status, even if he went to ask for an inscription master, there wouldn't be any results. She believed that if she drew an inscription and gave it to him, he would be very happy. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes also lit up. They clapped and said, Master, your idea is really good. Senior brother Wang Yan has taken care of us so much. We should also give him a surprise. With senior brother Wang Yan's current strength, the level of inscription required to upgrade his weapon to suit his current situation is not low. I don't have enough materials in my hands. Let's go to the inscription shop to buy some materials first. Bailey Hongzhuang thought and said, Okay. Xiao He and Xiao Bai both agreed. After Bailey Hongzhuang bought all the materials needed for the inscription, she also had a certain understanding of the prices in the upper realm. Sure enough, the prices here were much more expensive than the lower realm. Similarly, the things here were also more abundant. Some materials that were difficult to find in the lower realm were much more likely to be found here. Some of the precious materials in the lower realm were also brought to the upper realm. After returning to the inn, Bailey Hongzhuang began to think about what kind of inscription to draw for Wang Yanhan. The inscriptions needed to be suitable for each practitioner's characteristics and attributes. Only in this way could the inscriptions bring out the best effect. Fortunately, she had seen Wang Yanhan's weapon before and had a certain understanding in her heart. According to what she had learned before, Bailey Hongzhuang began to think carefully until she finally decided on the inscription method. Wang Yanhan was usually very busy with cultivation. As Bailey Hongzhuang's body gradually recovered, he also came over every few days. Because Bailey Hongzhuang did not know anyone else here, he was the only one who was relatively close to her. On this day, when Wang Yanhan received something from Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then, a look of astonishment appeared in his eyes. Little junior sister, this is inscription. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said. Wang Yanhan stared blankly at the ice blue inscription on his hand. He naturally knew that this was an inscription, but he never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would actually give him an inscription. Little junior sister, where did you get this inscription? Chapter 4193. Although she basically put her mind on Beichen's cursed body and the inheritance of the magic tower during this time, she was still very confident in her inscription technique. She believed that after Wang Yanhan's weapon used her inscription, its power would definitely increase by a level. At least, with Wang Yanhan's current cultivation, it was completely enough. After hearing that this inscription was drawn by Bailey Hongzhuang herself, Wang Yanhan couldn't help but be stunned. His eyes were full of surprise. "Little junior sister, I really didn't expect you to be an inscription master," Wang Yanhan couldn't help but exclaim. He carefully looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, as if this news had given him too much of surprise. "You are so young, but you have mastered the inscription technique. I really underestimated you before. When I saw you, I felt that your temperament was extraordinary. You're not an ordinary person. Now it seems that I was not wrong." What he said was the truth. When he first saw Bailey Hongzhuang, although she was dying at the entrance, he still felt that this woman was not simple at first glance. Of course, her beautiful face was also hard to ignore. Now that he thought about it, he was also somewhat fortunate. Fortunately, he met Bailey Hongzhuang first. Otherwise, if such a beautiful woman was taken away by someone with evil intentions, he really didn't know what would happen. Listening to Wang Yanhan's praise, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile gradually widened. She said with a smile, "Senior brother Wang Yan, I designed it according to the characteristics of your weapon, but I don't know whether it is to your liking or not." Wang Yanhan's weapon had ice attribute. This was something she had discovered a long time ago. Thinking about it, Wang Yanhan's attack method also had ice attribute. Therefore, when she designed it, she mainly amplified the attack power of ice attribute. "To my liking," Wang Yanhan quickly said. "Little junior sister personally designed it for me. How can it not be suitable for me? I will use this inscription. The effect must be very good." Wang Yanhan's expression changed slightly. He understood that Bailey Hongzhuang had heard that his weapon lacked an inscription, so she specially drew one for him. Although he felt that with Bailey Hongzhuang's current age, the effect of the inscription she drew would not be very good. For him, no matter what, this was his little junior sister's kind intention, so he naturally had to accept it. What's more, he had already tried. With his conditions, he simply could not afford to pay the inscription master. There was only one inscription master in Rome and city, but his inscription technique was very powerful. Usually, there were countless people who came to ask for inscription, and the conditions they offered were even more amazing. In addition to him, there were also some other inscription masters. However, their inscription skills were not outstanding enough, and they would not be of any help to him. He had already decided to give up. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang took out this inscription. To him, this was already a very good gesture. Bailey Hongzhuang saw that Wang Yanhan felt that this inscription was suitable even though he did not know what it was used for. While she was surprised, the smile in her eyes became more and more intense. Senior brother Wang Yan was indeed a good person. He took good care of his little junior sister. "Senior brother Wang Yan, let me introduce the effect of this inscription to you," Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Chapter 4194. I set this inscription according to the ice attribute of your weapon. It increases the attack power of the ice attribute. According to my judgment, the attack power should be increased by 50%. As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Wang Yanhan stared at her with his eyes wide open. He couldn't believe it. "Little junior sister, did I hear wrong? You said 50%? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "Yes, it is 50%. Originally, I wanted to increase it a little more, but there's a certain danger. It may damage the weapon. I don't have enough assurance. So the increase rate is controlled at 50%. Her delicate face revealed a bit of helplessness. She had to admit that she still needed to practice this level of inscription. Because her cultivation had not reached this level before, and her spiritual power had not increased, so the inscription technique was limited to a certain level. However, as far as the current situation was concerned, she felt that it should be enough. At the same time, she also made a decision. That was, she had to practice inscription technique during this time and strive to increase the level of inscription technique. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not know that Wang Yanhan was completely stunned by the 50% that she said. Generally speaking, An inscription that could increase a weapon's power by 20 to 30% was already very good. 50% was something that he had never thought of before. Originally, according to his idea, Bailey Hongzhuang's inscription could increase the power of his weapon by 10%, and he would be very satisfied. After all, little junior sister was so young. Although she had learned inscription technique, there was obviously a certain gap. However, little junior sister at this moment said such a large increase. Even if an inscription master helped him inscribe, the effect would not be better. In addition, I added an extra skill. That is, you can store a martial skill in your weapon. The stored martial skill can be instantaneously released. At a critical moment, it should be able to play a big role. Although this skill doesn't seem to be very useful, the life-saving effect is good. Bailey Hongzhuang looked serious. She felt that this setting was very practical. At a critical moment, this skill could save her life. You've added another skill? Instant cast. Wang Yanhan was completely dumbfounded. As far as he knew, it was very difficult to add another skill to the inscription. It was a test of the inscription master's skills. Ordinary inscriptionists wouldn't design inscriptions so carefully unless they received huge benefits or were helping their loved ones. He didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to set up such a skill for him. Most importantly, this skill was too practical. Once his essence energy was insufficient, or when he was in a critical juncture, this was completely a protective talisman. He could definitely store his strongest martial arts technique in it for a rainy day. If such a technique were to be spread out, who knew how many people would be envious? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. With my current inscription technique, I can only do this much. I hope you will like it. I don't just like it. I like it so much. Wang Yanhan's face was full of smiles. Little junior sister, you're really amazing. Chapter 4195. Looking at Wang Yanhan's appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt very amused. This senior fellow apprentice really didn't put on airs at all. Wang Yanhan must have been a respected figure in Penglai Palace before. She didn't expect him to be so approachable. In contrast, although Wang Yanling was also a good person, he was a little more arrogant than Wang Yanhan. No wonder Wang Yanhan had left Penglai Palace for so long, but Wang Yanling still couldn't completely replace him in Penglai Palace. She also knew in her heart that most people wouldn't believe such words at her current age. Except for people who knew her well, Shangwan Ying and the others didn't know that she had come here. She didn't know when they would meet again. Little junior sister apprentice, I really like this gift of yours. I can tell at a glance that you must have put in a lot of effort. Thank you. Wang Yanhan's expression was sincere and moved. Bailey Hongzhuang was originally seriously injured and had been recuperating these days. He didn't expect that she would take the trouble to make an inscription for him. He felt ashamed to accept it. Senior fellow apprentice, I should be the one thanking you. Since I came to the upper world, you have been taking care of me. If it weren't for your help, I'm afraid my current situation would be much worse. I don't have anything to repay you now, so I can only make this inscription to express my gratitude. Little junior sister apprentice, you are too polite. We are brothers and sisters of the same sect. It is right to help each other. In this upper world, we should help each other even more. You know, compared with us cultivators from the lower world, those who were originally from the upper world have always looked down on us, so we must help each other. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded with a faint smile. Senior fellow apprentice, you are right. Although Wang Yanhan didn't say anything in front of her, she knew that Wang Yanhan's life in the forces he was in now was not easy. This could be seen from Wang Yanhan's casual performance in daily life. However, as a person from the lower world, it was indeed not a simple thing to establish a foothold in the upper world where there were many masters. Now she was also isolated and helpless here. She could only try her best to do what she could. Junior sister apprentice Bailey, since you have come to the upper world, you can't leave here for a while. You might as well think about what to do next. If there is no place to go, it is better to join the force I am in. Even though Rong City is the first city you've come to, it's still one of the most prosperous cities in the upper realm. It is because of this reason that the transmission point is here. Wang Yanhan stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. His eyes were full of worry. Didn't you also say that? Your husband and friends are very strong. They will come to the upper world's upper world. Maybe he would be lucky enough to meet them in Rome City. That was not impossible. Besides, if you stay here, I can also do my best to take care of you. After this time, he long hong zhuang. Kam wanyan hanes was a han han han. Zhuang, huang. Zhuang yu han 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 was not to han 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 long. Chapter 4196. Let me think about it, Bailey Hongzhuang said after thinking for a while. She really didn't have any plans now. She came to Rome and City alone, and the only thing she wanted to do was to meet up with Beichin and the others. However, Beichin and the others couldn't come to the upper world in a short period of time, and they didn't have any clues to find the D family. She really didn't know what to do for a while. Wang Yanhan had already suggested this before, but at that time, she felt that she wouldn't stay in Rome and City for long, so she didn't agree. Now, she had unknowingly stayed in Rome and City for a while, and she had no goal and no place to go. Maybe it was really like what Wang Yanhan said, and they were so lucky to be able to meet up in Rome and City. Think about it first. Anyway, you're not in a hurry. Wang Yanhan smiled warmly. If you have other plans, it's okay. I'm just making a suggestion. Thank you, Senior. I know you mean well. Wang Yanhan smiled. Actually, I'm a little selfish. With you here, at least I can feel a trace of kinship in this unfamiliar Rome and City, and let me know that I'm not the only one here. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes gradually changed. She and Wang Yanhan had known each other for so long, but this was the first time she saw him reveal such emotions. With Wang Yanhan's friendly personality, even in this unfamiliar place, he should be able to make many friends quickly. However, these friends couldn't understand the feelings of a person from the lower world like him. When he told others that he was from the lower world, they would always look down on him. This sense of superiority was like a city dweller meeting a country dweller. Even if he wasn't arrogant, he would show this in some small details. This sense of superiority seemed to come from his bones. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood why Wang Yanhan was so friendly when he saw her. Meeting an old friend in a foreign place was indeed something to be happy about. If I can't think of a place to go, then I'll stay in Rome and City. Okay. The smile in Wang Yanhan's eyes widened a little. He understood that Bailey Hongzhuang's thoughts had changed. Obviously, she already had plans to stay here. After Wang Yanhan left, Xiao He and Xiao Bai sat in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Master, why do I feel that Senior Brother Wang Yan's days here aren't easy? Xiao He frowned as she sighed. Although Wang Yanhan had been smiling brilliantly, she could feel that there was a trace of bitterness in the depths of his smile. In a place like this, as long as you say you are from the lower realms, you will be despised. You can imagine what kind of situation the people from the lower realms are in here. Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. She had already guessed this. After all, they had the same feeling when they first arrived at Penglai Island from the outside world. However, in the upper realm, this feeling was magnified many times over. It is said that although there is an entrance connecting the upper realm and the lower realm, there are not many cultivators who come from the lower realm to the upper realm. Chapter 4197. Although they had always been optimistic and didn't think it was a big deal to follow their master to this unfamiliar place, they firmly believed in their master's strength and believed that as long as their master was willing, she would definitely be able to gain a foothold in the upper realm and even make a name for herself. However, they also realized that the situation this time would be much more difficult than before. Looking at Xiao He and Xiao Bai's worried expressions, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but reach out and pinch their chubby little faces. She said, "Don't think so much. Let's take one step at a time. It might not be as difficult as we think." Although Bailey Hongzhuang guessed that the people from the upper realm might be unkind to the cultivators from the lower realm, she didn't mind. Anyway, she had always endured such contempt and mockery. Even if she encountered the same situation here, it wouldn't be a big deal. Anyway, she had long been used to the supercilious looks from others. However, those who looked down on her would be shocked sooner or later. Yes, yes. Xiao He and Xiao Bai nodded repeatedly. Master, we believe in you. After Wang Yanhan returned, he took out the inscription that Bailey Hongzhuang gave him. This ice blue inscription was very mysterious. Just by looking at the complicated pattern, one could tell how much effort Bailey Hongzhuang spent to draw it. Little junior sister is really nice. She must have spent a lot of effort to design this inscription for me. Wang Yanhan's lips gradually curled up. Then, he copied the inscription onto his weapon. After copying, there was an additional circular blue pattern on his weapon. This color was very compatible with the color of his weapon. It looked very nice. Looking at the weapon in his hand, Wang Yanhan smiled. Little junior sister had really put in a lot of effort. Even the size of the inscription was very suitable for the weapon. I wonder how much my combat power will increase after copying this inscription. I'm really looking forward to it. Just when Wang Yanhan wanted to try it, he realized that it was already time to gather. He could only wait until he returned to test it. He then set off to the martial arts field. After Di Wentao noticed the inscription on Wang Yanhan's weapon, his eyes couldn't help but flash with a trace of surprise. He slowly walked to his side. Yo, Wang Yanhan, a poor ghost like you can actually invite an inscription master to help you inscribe? Di Wentao sized up Wang Yanhan's inscription patterns. 2 days ago, he was still mocking Wang Yanhan for not being able to hire an inscriptionist. This weapon couldn't keep up with his strength. He didn't expect that in just 2 days, Wang Yanhan's weapon had already completed the inscription pattern. Even if one went to ask an inscription master for help, it would take a long time to line up. Wang Yanhan's actions undoubtedly made him lose face. After Wang Yanhan saw that Di Wentao had arrived, he couldn't help but frown. Di Wentao was a cultivator from the upper realm. Although his strength was on par with his, Di Wentao had always mocked him because of his status. Regarding this, he had always felt very impatient. However, this Di Wentao was clearly a narrow-minded fellow. He always liked to think of ways to target him. A few days ago, because his weapon didn't have any inscriptions, this guy made fun of him in front of everyone, making him feel very embarrassed. Chapter 4198. What does it have to do with you whether I have an inscription on my weapon or not? Wang Yanhan's expression was cold. He looked at Di Wentao with disgust. Di Wentao, you're meddling too much. However, facing Wang Yanhan's cold face, Di Wentao did not care at all. With a wave of his hand, the few cultivators behind him also stood beside him. Their gazes towards Wang Yanhan were filled with ridicule and interest. What? Di Wentao raised his eyebrows. The evil smile in his eyes became more intense. I'm just concerned about you. Why are you so angry? I heard that the inscription master in our realm and city has been very busy recently. The people who want to find him to inscribe inscriptions have lined up for a few streets. You're able to inscribe so quickly. Don't tell me you found an inscription apprentice to help you inscribe? As he said that, Di Wentao couldn't help but laugh. At the same time, the cultivators behind him also laughed out loud. Wentao, is there need to think about it? With his little background, can he afford to hire an inscription master? He must have found an inscription apprentice at random. He might even have to beg an inscription apprentice for half a day. After all, cultivators from the lower realm don't have any background. It's very difficult for them to do things. That's right. If he can afford to hire an inscription master, that would be strange. However, he really cares about his reputation. He found an inscription apprentice at random. This is simply a waste of time. It's useless. It's a waste of his weapon. Sentence after sentence of ridicule mercilessly provoked Wang Yanhan. Wang Yanhan's complexion also gradually turned ashen. He had always been unwilling to deal with Di Wentao and the others. On one hand, they had always been in groups and had a certain status here. It would be very troublesome for him to become enemies with them. However, his performance here had been very good recently. The manager also thought highly of him. Perhaps it was because Di Wentao felt that he was a threat to his position that he kept finding trouble here. The surrounding cultivators were also attracted by the commotion caused by Di Wentao and the others. After seeing that it was Di Wentao who took the initiative to find trouble with Wang Yanhan, everyone was somewhat speechless. This Di Wintao really likes to find trouble. Although Wang Yanhan came from the lower realm, his strength and talent are actually quite outstanding. Otherwise, he wouldn't have received the attention of the manager in such a short time. It is said that Wang Yanhan and Di Wintao were given the position of team leader for this experiential learning mission. Presumably, it is precisely because of this that Di Wintao is thinking of ways to target Wang Yanhan. What a pity! If Wang Yanhan came from the upper realm and not the lower realm, his current situation would be much better. It's precisely because he doesn't have any background and isn't rich enough that he really isn't Di Wintao's match. There's no choice. Things like one's background aren't something that one can decide. In the end, it can only be said that Wang Yanhan didn't choose a good family background. You see, there will be a good show to watch later. Everyone was discussing. Everyone understood that with Wang Yanhan's family background, it was simply impossible to hire an inscription master to help inscribe. In addition, with Di Wintao's personality of wanting to see the world in chaos, it would definitely be difficult for him to step down today. Chapter 4199. Yo, got exposed by me. You admit it so easily? Di Wintao saw that Wang Yanhan admitted it so easily, and he felt bored. He originally thought that Wang Yanhan would put up a strong front for the sake of his face. This way, it would be more interesting if he exposed him, and he could also make him lose face in front of everyone. However, now that Wang Yanhan said this, there was naturally no more fun. I originally didn't ask an inscription master to help inscribe patterns. What's wrong with admitting this point? Wang Yanhan was very calm. Practically everyone here knew about his situation. Even if he wanted to put up a strong front for the sake of his face, there was also no meaning. Moreover, although his background couldn't be compared to these upper realm cultivators, he was also highly regarded here. Just this point alone was already enough. Since you admitted it, then I won't say anything more. Di Wintao shrugged. Why don't you tell me how many spirit stones you spent to ask an inscription apprentice to help you inscribe patterns? I've stayed in this upper realm for so many years, so I understand these situations better than you. You tell me, and I can also help you see whether you made a loss or not. In the future, you can also have a score in your heart. As he spoke, the curve of Di Wintao's lips also gradually widened. No matter what, he must teach Wang Yanhan a lesson today. Before Wang Yanhan came, he had always been the team leader. He didn't expect that the position of team leader actually fell into Wang Yanhan's hands now. He really had no face. If he couldn't turn the tables this time, he definitely wouldn't be happy in his heart. After seeing Di Wintao being so unyielding, the anger in Wang Yanhan's eyes also gradually rose. This fellow, he was already very polite to him. He didn't expect that the other party would reach for a yard after taking an inch and still not willing to give up. Truly hateful. Di Wintao, why do you always find trouble with Wang Yanhan for no reason? You don't need to worry about how many spirit stones he spent. Yi Haomiao walked to Wang Yanhan's side and glared at Di Wintao. Yi Haomiao, I'm just concerned about Wang Yanhan. Di Wintao didn't care at all. Anyway, as long as he could make Wang Yanhan unhappy today, it didn't matter what other people said about him. You said that Wang Yanhan is a newcomer. Although he has been here for some time, he has never come into contact with inscriptions. As fellow disciples, we naturally have to keep an eye out for him. If we're cheated, we can help him seek justice. Isn't that great? Yi Haomiao frowned. Don't look at how Di Wintao said it in a dignified manner. Actually, they were all very clear in their hearts that this fellow just wanted to get hold of a weakness that could be used against Wang Yanhan to make him unhappy. Wang Yanhan, you can't be so petty, right? The inscription pattern has already been inscribed, and you're not even willing to state the price? Di Wintao walked to Wang Yanhan's side. Could it be that the level of your inscription is too low and you're too embarrassed to say it? Wang Yanhan looked at Di Wintao, who was thinking of ways to get information out of him. He understood in his heart that if he did not say it today, Di Wintao would definitely not let the matter rest. Di Wintao, I don't need your fake kindness. Everyone knows what you're thinking. You don't have to bother to find out where I did this inscription pattern. This is the inscription pattern that my little junior sister gave me. I just copied it today. Chapter 4200. Junior Sister. This time, not only was Di Wintao stunned, the other cultivators present were also stunned. How come they had never heard that Wang Yinhan had a junior sister? Yi Haomiao also looked at Wang Yinhan in astonishment. He had also never heard Wang Yinhan mention anything about his junior sister. Wang Yinhan, even if you want to lie to us, you have to give a more reliable reason. We never knew that you had a junior sister. You're not a roundworm in my stomach. Naturally, you wouldn't know everything about me. Wang Yinhan's expression was cold. My junior sister only got to know me recently. She saw that I didn't have an inscription and helped me draw one. Oh. Di Wintao dragged out his voice. The ridicule in his voice was very obvious. Then your junior sister really treats you exceptionally well. She knows what you lack and gives you what you need. However, an inscription drawn by a junior sister from the lower realm, I'm afraid it's as trashy as it can be, right? Following Di Wintao's words, Wang Yinhan's expression suddenly changed. A trace of sternness flashed across his deep eyes. This was a gift from his junior sister. No matter what the effect of this inscription was, just this kind intention was very precious to him. How could he let Di Wintao trample on it so casually? Whether my inscription is good or not, that's my business. It's fine as long as I like it. On the other hand, Di Wintao, you keep saying that my inscription isn't good enough. From what I know, your inscription doesn't seem to have been drawn by an inscription master, right? Don't tell me. You found an inscription apprentice yourself. That's why you're so concerned about me now. Wang Yinhan's lips suddenly curled into a mocking arc. All along, he had always given in. However, this time, he didn't want to continue giving in. Although after coming to the upper realm, there was a period of time when he felt inferior in front of these people because of his birth. However, Wang Yinhan, was also a genius from the lower realm. Why couldn't he have a foothold here? Now that he was able to replace Di Wintao's position, didn't this already prove himself? Di Wintao, who was originally still ridiculing Wang Yinhan, had his smile suddenly freeze at this moment. That pair of eyes filled with ridicule also gradually narrowed, adding a trace of sharpness and anger. Wang Yinhan, are you trying to challenge me? Di Wintao's voice suddenly turned cold. The joking tone disappeared, replaced by a threat. From the beginning to the end, you've been looking for trouble with me. If you think so, then so be it. After all, haven't you always refused to listen to what others say? As soon as he said that, Di Wintao's right foot suddenly stomped on the ground. His gaze was cold and icy. According to what you're saying, my inscriptions can't be compared to yours. You dare to compare the trash inscription pattern that your shitty junior sister drew with mine? If you have the ability, then let's compete. I will let you know how trashy your inscription patterns are. Just like you, they're all trashy. Di Wintao directly took out his weapon, his eyes flickering with raging fury. Clearly, he would not rest until he made a move on Wang Yinhan today. You're the trash. Wang Yinhan's voice was cold. The cold light in his eyes was like a blade, sharp and cold. Yi Haomiao and the rest looked at Wang Yinhan in astonishment. Usually, Wang Yinhan was very low-key. Why did his temper suddenly change today? Chapter 4201. I'm trash. Di Wintao pointed at himself and sneered. Since that's the case, let's have a good competition. Let's have a competition then. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Wang Yinhan's expression was firm. Little junior sister had just arrived and did not have much fear of the upper realm. As a senior brother, he was still immersed in the emotions of being suppressed. In comparison, he was too weak. In the end, he was still quite grateful to little junior sister. If she had not come here and reminded him of the time in Polai Palace, he would have almost forgotten that he was also respected by everyone in the past. Cultivation was to change one's fate. Heroes did not matter where they came from. As long as he could establish himself here and make a name for himself. Then, so what if he was a cultivator from the lower realm? At least, no matter what, he should not lose this courage. After seeing Wang Yinhan's firm attitude, Yi Haomiao could not help but pull Wang Yanhan to the side. His eyes were filled with worry. Wang Yanhan, what's wrong with you today? Wang Yanhan glanced at Yi Haomiao and said, I know you're worried about me, but I've already made my decision today. Sigh. Yi Haomiao sighed. I have to tell you, just now, I happened to hear that Di Wentao's inscription was made by the inscription master's proudest disciple. Although it's still lacking compared to the inscription master, its power is already quite good. It can help Di Wentao's combat power increase by nearly 40%. Although your previous strength was not much different from his, now that he has this weapon, you're obviously at a disadvantage. This guy is definitely not a soft-hearted person. You took away his position as the leader, and he has always hated you. Previously, you kept dodging, so he couldn't find a reason to attack you. Now that you're facing him head-on, he will definitely take the opportunity to injure you. While there's still room for negotiation, you should quickly change your words. Yi Haomiao's eyes were filled with worry. Looking at his appearance, it was obvious that he wished he could help Wang Yanhan reject him. However, Wang Yanhan's attitude did not change because of his words. On the contrary, he was still so firm. Do you think that the situation will change just because I changed my words today? It was only a matter of time. If he wanted to deal with me, he would find all sorts of excuses. Since that's the case, I might as well give him a dignified reason. Di Wentao naturally knew that Yi Haomiao was persuading Wang Yanhan. It wasn't easy for him to seize such an opportunity. He absolutely couldn't let Wang Yanhan give up just like this. Immediately, he hurriedly said, Wang Yanhan, since we're going to compete, we naturally have to have some stakes. What do you think? Hearing this, Wang Yanhan's lips curved into a cold arc. Di Wentao, just say what you're planning. Awesome. Di Wentao clapped his hands. My idea is very simple. As long as I win, you'll hand over the position of captain. The crowd burst into an uproar when these words were spoken. He had already guessed that Di Wentao didn't have any good intentions, but he didn't expect him to dig such a big hole this time. He wanted to use this opportunity to take back the position of captain. Chapter 4202. No matter what wager you say, it's not a problem. Di Wentao spread out his hands, his expression indifferent and wanton. Obviously, he was sure that he had no possibility of losing. Okay, Wang Yanhan replied. If I win, you have to remember that you're my defeated opponent and take a detour when you see me. You're not allowed to find trouble with me again. After hearing Wang Yanhan's words, Di Wentao's expression was a little ugly. The other party's request was really making him lose face. However, after thinking that Wang Yanhan had no possibility of winning, he nodded. Okay, I promise you. After everyone saw that Wang Yanhan and Di Wentao had reached the same agreement, their expressions instantly became interesting. Di Wentao is totally setting a trap for Wang Yanhan. Usually, Wang Yanhan seems quite smart. Even if he can't afford to offend him, he can still hide. What's wrong with him today? He actually bumped into it himself. Wang Yanhan finally got the steward's attention. If he loses this battle and takes the initiative to hand over the position of leader to Di Wentao, I'm afraid that the steward will be very disappointed. Sigh, Wang Yanhan really made an unwise decision this time. Everyone sighed faintly. Although they knew that Wang Yanhan came from the lower realm and had a low status, they also knew that this Wang Yanhan was indeed the real deal. Among all the cultivators here, his speed of improvement was the fastest. Just based on his own efforts to gain the steward's trust, this was already very difficult. However, success or failure depended on this. If he lost today's battle, it would be even more difficult for Wang Yanhan to establish himself here in the future. Almost no one thought that Wang Yanhan would win. Even Yi Haomiao had a helpless expression. He already tried his best to persuade Wang Yanhan, but didn't expect that the other party wouldn't listen to him at all. He was also extremely helpless. Let's start. Di Wentao's expression became increasingly proud. He immediately raised his voice. Everyone present will stay behind to be witnesses, in case someone wants to go back on his words after losing. Hearing that, no one had any intention of leaving. Although they had already determined the outcome of today's battle, they still wanted to see to the end. They wanted to know if there would be a chance for a turn of events at the end. The next moment, the two of them directly stood on the stage with a leap. The cold wind whistled, scraping against his body like a knife. It was bone-piercing cold. At this moment, their gazes were as sharp as blades as they stared at each other. The old and new hatred overlapped at this moment, and all the hatred seemed to want to take this opportunity to completely end it. Wang Yanhan slowly took out his weapon and rubbed the icy blue inscription on the weapon with his right hand. Just nice. He could use this opportunity to test the effect of this inscription pattern. Dense origin energy erupted from their bodies, and in the next instant, the flames of battle were directly ignited. The figures of the two people were like the wind, the soles of their feet abruptly stomping on the ground as they charged out like cannonballs. Their vigorous origin energy was extremely shocking, and the moves they used were ruthless and merciless. Ding! The weapons collided, creating sparks. Wang Yanhan waved his long sword with his right hand, his expression cold and cautious. Although he despised Di Wentao's despicable methods, he had no choice but to admit that the other party's strength was not to be underestimated. Therefore, he had never intended to underestimate the other party. Ding, ding, ding. Chapter 4203. Di Wentao thought that he would be able to break Wang Yanhan's weapon in one move because the other party's weapon couldn't be compared to his. But after this exchange, he couldn't maintain the smug look on his face, because he realized that Wang Yanhan's weapon was extremely sharp. The originally powerful ice energy had a huge increase and was much stronger than before. This is impossible. This thought flashed across Di Wentao's mind at the first moment. But in the following exchange, the situation clearly told him that everything was true. Wang Yanhan was shocked after he made his move. Although he heard Bailey Hongzhuang say that this inscription pattern could increase the power of the weapon by 50%, he didn't take it to heart, because a 50% increase was too shocking. With Bailey Hongzhuang's current age, it was impossible for her to achieve this. But he was very clear about how powerful his weapon was. Previously, he felt that this weapon couldn't keep up with his current strength, and it wasn't easy to buy a suitable weapon with ice attribute. So, he could only continue to use it. But when he used this sword today, he realized that this sword was extremely handy. All his energy could be transmitted through this weapon without any hindrance. On the contrary, the power was extremely strong. From Di Wentao's change in expression, it could be seen that he wasn't the only one who felt this. Could it be that what little junior sister said was true? This weapon's amplification is really so powerful? Wang Yanhan was pleasantly surprised. This weapon's amplification was completely out of his expectations. He didn't think that what little junior sister said was true. So little junior sister's inscription pattern technique was actually so powerful. He underestimated little junior sister previously. The other cultivators were waiting for Wang Yanhan to be utterly defeated. But when they noticed that the person who was utterly defeated was actually Di Wentao, everyone couldn't help but be dumbfounded. What situation is this? Wang Yanhan actually suppressed Di Wentao? This is impossible. Their strength was always on par. Adding on the inscription pattern on Di Wentao's weapon, the winner should be Di Wentao. Why is the situation completely opposite? Didn't you guys notice that Wang Yanhan's battle power is much stronger than before? His weapon also seems to be powerful, so his strength increased greatly. There were many discerning people among the cultivators present. The reason why Wang Yanhan wanted to inscribe his weapon was because his weapon couldn't withstand the power he released. So, it caused him to be unable to fully unleash his power during the battle. This time, Wang Yanhan didn't feel any hindrance during the battle. On the contrary, it was like flowing water. His battle power wasn't comparable to usual. From the looks of it, Wang Yanhan's inscription pattern this time. Originally, he thought that Di Wentao had set a trap for Wang Yanhan. He did not expect that the situation was the complete opposite. It was actually Wang Yanhan who had set a trap for Di Wentao. This time, D's really goings twos to lose face. Chapter 4204. A deep smile appeared in Yi Hao Miao's eyes. Turns out that I was worried for nothing. Wang Yanhan had already thought of a foolproof plan long ago. Instead, it was me who almost ruined his plans. Let's see how Di Wintao can still be arrogant now. Bang! Following Wang Yanhan's move, Di Wintao's figure fell heavily onto the ground. Just as he was preparing to climb up, Wang Yanhan's sharp sword had already stopped at his neck. His movements instantly stagnated. You lost. Wang Yanhan looked down at Di Wintao from above. His gaze was icy cold, but the corners of his lips slowly curved up into a smile. Di Wintao stared blankly at Wang Yanhan. His face turned ashen, and his eyes flickered with thick unwillingness, but he was powerless. Everyone was in an uproar. Everyone looked at this outcome in astonishment. This was really too different from what they had imagined. This completely overturned the result that they had thought of. Wang Yanhan, you purposely set a trap for me. Di Wintao stood up furiously. His gaze towards Wang Yanhan was filled with indignation and fury. He was wondering why this Wang Yanhan's personality suddenly changed today and actually agreed to his suggestion for a battle. Turns out that this fellow was full of confidence in his own inscription pattern and purposely set this up. Hearing Di Wintao's words, Wang Yanhan stretched out a finger and shook it. Di Wintao, what you said doesn't make any sense. From start to end, regarding this inscription pattern, I didn't take the initiative to mention a single word, right? It's you who kept forcing me step by step. It's also you who suggested a battle. Now that you've lost, you actually pushed all of this onto me. Even though I already knew that you're shameless, but doing this isn't a little too shameless? Following Wang Yanhan's words, Di Wintao's originally ashen face became as black as the bottom of a pot. Indeed, this matter was completely suggested by him. However, he still firmly believed that Wang Yanhan absolutely did it on purpose, because this fellow's performance today was really too abnormal. Wasn't all of this purposely luring me into a trap? Di Wintao snorted coldly. This inscription pattern of yours wasn't drawn by some little junior sister at all. It was drawn by a master. You actually pretended to be a pig to eat the tiger in front of me and purposely tricked me. A bet is a bet. Wang Yanhan simply couldn't be bothered to pay attention to what Di Wintao was saying now. Instead, he went straight to the point. In the future, when you see me, it's best to take a detour and don't come looking for any trouble with me. I hope you can do what you say. Di Wintao looked at Wang Yanhan unwillingly. However, after noticing the gazes around him, he could only suppress his angry words. If he didn't admit it in front of so many people, it would indeed be somewhat embarrassing. The several cultivators behind Di Wintao also had dissatisfied expressions. Their wishful thinking was very good. They originally wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to snatch back Di Wintao's position as the captain, but they didn't expect to go for wool and come home shorn. This time, they really lost a lot of face. Thinking that they would have to take a detour if they saw Wang Yanhan in the future, what face would they have left? Wang Yanhan faintly glanced at Di Wintao and didn't continue to stay. He had already said so much. He believed that Di Wintao wouldn't slap his own face in the future. Chapter 4205. After Wang Yanhan turned around and left, the cultivators present also burst into an uproar. Di Wintao really dug a hole and buried himself in it today. Usually, he likes to find trouble with Wang Yanhan the most. After today's incident, he won't be able to be arrogant in front of Wang Yanhan anymore. Today was really a good show. However, the effect of Wang Yanhan's inscription pattern is indeed amazing. I remember that his combat strength wasn't so strong previously. This weapon increased his strength by quite a bit. With Wang Yanhan's current strength, he is fully deserving of being the leader. The cultivators all sighed. They who were still criticizing Wang Yanhan previously didn't have any doubts at this moment. With this kind of strength, he could indeed be their leader. Di Wintao, this Wang Yanhan is getting worse and worse recently. He's clearly tricking you on purpose. The cultivators standing behind Di Wintao didn't look any better than Di Wintao after hearing everyone's discussion. They were originally in the same camp as Di Wintao. Now that Di Wintao was ruthlessly trampled on, they naturally lost face. Yeah, his inscription pattern is definitely not ordinary. Previously, he kept pretending in front of us. Truly abominable. Then what do we do in the future? Do we really have to take a detour when we see him? Di Wentao's mood was already very unhappy. At this moment, after hearing the words of the people behind him, he couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. Take a detour? What qualifications does he have to make me take a detour? The person who should scram is him. Raging flames of anger burned in Di Wentao's eyes. With paranoia and madness, he must get rid of this thorn in his side today. Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao walked all the way back to their residence. Both of their footsteps were very slow. Today's battle was really abnormally delightful for them. However, suddenly, a tyrannical attack struck towards Wang Yanhan. Feeling the air wave behind him, Yi Haomiao couldn't help but frown. When he turned around and saw everything clearly, he couldn't help but shout, "Wang Yanhan, be careful." Bang! A violent blue light flashed past, and an explosion resounded. Everyone's vision suddenly became blurry. The smoke and dust that filled the sky blocked the surroundings, making it impossible for them to see the scene clearly. A look of disbelief flashed across the faces of the practitioners present. No one had thought that after the competition ended, Di Wintao would actually go and find trouble with Wang Yanhan. This is a sneak attack. It seems that Di Wintao has really gone mad this time. He can even do such a thing. Di Wentao's actions are truly too much. If you agree to a bet, you must accept your loss. His sneak attack from behind is truly too despicable. Everyone's faces were ugly. Although they all knew that Di Wintao had always been narrow-minded, they never thought that this guy would actually do such a thing. At this moment, everyone suddenly felt contempt for Di Wintao. At the very least, as a captain, he needed to have a certain amount of tolerance and principles. However, Di Wintao was simply too intolerant. This wasn't a good thing. For a moment, everyone was worried about Wang Yanhan. If Di Wentao's sneak attack succeeded, then Wang Yanhan would definitely suffer heavy injuries, and the villain would gain the upper hand. Silence. Chapter 4206. As the dust gradually dispersed, when everyone saw the situation in front of them, they couldn't help but widen their eyes in disbelief, because the situation in front of them was completely different from what they had imagined. The one who fell on the ground wasn't Wang Yanhan, but Di Wintao. This time, not only were they dumbfounded, even Di Wentao's good friends couldn't help but rub their eyes, thinking that they were seeing things. How could the one who fell on the ground be Di Wintao? However, no matter how they looked at it, the situation didn't change at all. Wang Yanhan just stood there perfectly fine, as if the person who was ambushed wasn't him. His expression was calm and indifferent, like the clear wind and bright moon, unparalleled. On the contrary, Di Wintao was lying on the ground at this moment, his face somewhat pale, and there were faint traces of blood seeping out from his clothes. Obviously, the ambush just now had injured him quite badly. How could this be? This thought flashed in almost everyone's mind. This was too inconceivable. Yi Haomiao also looked at Wang Yanhan in astonishment, unable to wrap his head around it for a moment. He only felt that Wang Yanhan's performance today was really too unexpected, too different from his usual self. How did you do it? Di Wintao looked at Wang Yanhan unwillingly, shock and confusion flashing his eyes. When he attacked just now, he attacked with the intention of killing the other party's target. Moreover, his speed was extremely fast, and his voice was extremely soft, not giving the other party any time to react. According to the situation of his attack just now, even if Wang Yanhan discovered his ambush later on, the most he could do was dodge, and he couldn't display a martial technique that was close to his power at all. However, although this was his judgment, Wang Yanhan didn't act according to common sense at all. At that critical moment, Wang Yanhan actually counterattacked suddenly without any warning. He didn't even see Wang Yanhan's hand sign, nor did he feel the fluctuation of Yuan power in his body. But this martial technique appeared out of thin air. For a moment, the person who was caught off guard was him, causing him to be completely dumbfounded. However, the intense pain that came from his body clearly told him that all of this was real. Although all of this seemed so unbelievable, it really happened. Why should I tell you? Wang Yanhan coldly looked at Di Wentao. The coldness in his eyes was like a 10,000-year-old lake. I originally thought that you would at least keep your promise in front of everyone. However, it seems that I have overestimated you. Di Wentao's complexion turned ugly, and he felt a burning pain on his face. If a sneak attack was successful and he managed to kill Wang Yanhan, it would be fine. However, he didn't expect that not only was Wang Yanhan fine, he was the one who was seriously injured. This was really embarrassing. At this moment, he didn't even dare to look at the gazes of the people around him. He wished he could find a hole in the ground and crawl into it. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have launched a sneak attack on Wang Yanhan. Unfortunately, it was too late to regret now. Di Wentao, you should rejoice. There's a rule here that forbids you from attacking your fellow disciples. If we were outside, I would definitely not be courteous to you. Wang Yanhan's gaze was cold, and his voice was icy to the extreme. If you see me in the future, you better take a detour. Otherwise, I will let you relive today's taste. Chapter 4207. Wang Yanhan left just like that, because he knew that today's situation was enough to make Di Wentao look bad. He didn't need to say anything more. The calmer he appeared, the more it set off Di Wentao's despicable nature. One could imagine how depressed the latter was at this moment. Di Wentao looked at Wang Yanhan's departing figure. He still fell heavily on the ground. Even if he wanted to stand up, he couldn't do it. At that time, he was so close to Wang Yanhan. He didn't dodge the other party's attack at all, and it all landed on his body. At this moment, he only felt a burning pain in his internal organs, as if they were displaced. He even tasted a trace of fishy sweetness in his mouth. Di Wentao's friend hurriedly rushed to his side and helped him up. However, Di Wentao couldn't control himself at all. A mouthful of blood violently spurted out, just like that. His entire aura withered. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. No one thought that Wang Yanhan's strength would suddenly become so much stronger. Previously, Wang Yanhan's strength was clearly on par with Di Wentao. Now, in just a short period of time, he could seriously injure Di Wentao to this extent. It could be seen how powerful he was. In the future, this Di Wentao really doesn't have the capital to challenge Wang Yanhan. His current strength can't be compared to Wang Yanhan at all. That's right. After this incident, if he still dares to find trouble with Wang Yanhan, then his skin is really thick enough. Everyone gradually dispersed. However, Di Wentao still stood at the same spot. His face was ashen and complicated. His hands under his sleeves gradually clenched into fists. Deep hatred burned in his eyes. If it was said that he only hated Wang Yanhan previously, then after today, it had completely turned into hatred. He hated this damned fellow. After snatching the position that originally belonged to him, he made him lose so much face. If he couldn't chase Wang Yanhan out like this, he would definitely not let this matter rest. Wang Yanhan, how did you do it just now? Yi Hao Miao looked at Wang Yanhan curiously. His eyes were filled with curiosity. That situation just now, even he felt that it was extremely dangerous. Luckily, Wang Yanhan directly pushed him to the side at the crucial moment. Only then could he narrowly escape. Otherwise, under that kind of attack, not only Wang Yanhan, even he would be seriously injured. However, from the start to the end, he didn't see how Wang Yanhan had attacked. How could his martial skill achieve an instantaneous effect? Even now, when he recalled the scene from before, he still felt that there were some things he couldn't explain. Looking at Yi Hao Miao's curious expression, Wang Yanhan couldn't help but chuckle. It's all thanks to the inscription pattern little junior sister gave me. Yi Hao Miao was slightly taken aback when he heard that. He asked in confusion, the martial skill you used just now, is related to inscriptions. Wang Yanhan nodded slightly. That's right. It was this inscription that saved my life. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to deal with that situation just now. The one who would be heavily injured would definitely be me. Even though the sneak attack had already passed, Wang Yanhan still couldn't help having some lingering fear in his heart. If it wasn't for the fact that the inscription that little junior sister gave him had this function, and that he had stored a martial skill in it out of curiosity, he might have lost his life in that situation just now. Chapter 4208. Was this inscription really given to you by your junior sister? Yi Hao Miao's eyes flickered with ridicule, not hiding his curiosity at all. I've never heard of you having a junior sister. When did you meet her? Wang Yanhan smiled. I met her not long ago. She happens to be from the same force as me. After knowing that my weapon needs an inscription, she specially drew one for me. In that case, your junior sister isn't just powerful. She also has deep feelings for you. Yi Hao Miao dragged out his voice, hinting at something, but there was a trace of envy in the depths of his eyes. To be able to have such a junior sister was truly something to be envied. Inscriptions might not be difficult for others, but to them, it was definitely not easy to invite a master to help them with inscriptions. Don't think too much. Junior sister is already married. We're just fellow disciples who have a good relationship. Wang Yanhan's smile didn't fade. After meeting Bailey Hongzhuang in the upper realm, he had a feeling that he had met his family. After all, he was looked down upon everywhere in the upper realm. To be able to meet a cultivator who came from the same place as him was really something to be happy about. Oh, Yi Hao Miao curled his lips. That's really a pity. Wang Yanhan smiled faintly and didn't say anything. He didn't have any other thoughts. From Bailey Hongzhuang's expression when she mentioned Di Beichen, he could see that the couple had deep feelings for each other. He believed that Di Beichen would come here to reunite with Bailey Hongzhuang soon. During this period of time, he could take good care of Bailey Hongzhuang. They could be considered to be helping each other. Wang Yanhan, based on what you did today, you already knew that the inscription had such a powerful effect, so you deliberately set a trap for Di Wentao. If you had such a sentence, you should have told me earlier. You made me expose you and almost ruined it. Until now, Yi Hao Miao couldn't help but sigh. He really didn't expect Wang Yanhan, who had always been very low-key, to suddenly turn around this time. It was completely beyond his expectations. Actually, this wasn't planned by me. Moreover, I just got the inscription pattern not long ago, and I didn't have the time to test its power. Although little junior sister told me that it was very powerful, my little junior sister was too young, so I didn't believe her too much at that time. However, Di Wentao kept pressuring me step by step, so I was forced to agree to his request. I didn't expect the effects to be as great as my junior sister said. Even I was surprised. Until now, Wang Yanhan was still immersed in the power of the inscription pattern. Although they had not fought for a long time, he could clearly feel that this weapon could now completely keep up with his strength. There was no hindrance when he used his origin energy, and it had completely raised his combat strength by a large margin, which was really delightful. What? Yi Hao Miao was stunned. So you didn't know before? Aren't you a little too bold? What if you lose? What will you do this time? Chapter 4209. Wang Yanhan raised his head and looked at the sky. He felt that the sky was exceptionally blue today, and the sun was exceptionally bright. He was once an existence that everyone envied in the lower realm. Now, he had always lowered his head. This kind of oppressive feeling had existed in his heart for a long time. Now that he had completely released it, he felt refreshed. Yi Hao Miao also noticed Wang Yanhan's current mood. A smile immediately appeared on his lips. Wang Yanhan, your strength is actually not inferior to Di Wentao's. Now that your weapon has been inscribed, your combat strength has even surpassed his. From now on, you don't have to endure it all. Although the cultivators in the upper realm have some prejudice against the cultivators from the lower realm, the law of the strong being respected has never changed. As long as you are stronger than him, he can't be arrogant in front of you. I believe that with your potential, You will soon be able to gain a foothold in the upper realm. Wang Yanhan turned his head and saw Yi Haomiao's confident gaze. The corners of his lips couldn't help but curl up a little. Then he nodded firmly. We will all make a name for ourselves. Right. I wonder if I have a chance to meet your little junior sister? A young and powerful inscription master. I also want to get to know her. Yi Haomiao smiled. Wang Yanhan thought for a moment and said, I have to ask my little junior sister first. If she agrees, I will bring you to see her. As his good friend, he trusted Yi Haomiao very much. Ever since he came to the upper realm, his best friend was Yi Haomiao. However, this matter had to be approved by Bailey Hongzhuang first. Hearing this, Yi Haomiao nodded. Okay, what happened today had spread rapidly in a short period of time. In a moment, everyone in the force already knew about it. Di Wintao was ruthlessly stepped on by Wang Yanhan just like that. This made everyone present feel shocked. Compared to everyone's enthusiasm, Di Wintao's hatred for Wang Yanhan gradually deepened. Quickly help me follow Wang Yanhan. I want to know if he really has a little junior sister. Di Wintao's eyes flashed with a ruthless light. Until now, he had never been so humiliated. Although Wang Yanhan said it in all seriousness, he didn't believe it at all. The other party was just a cultivator from the lower realm. How could he have such a powerful junior sister in inscription technique? I will immediately follow him. Rest at ease and recuperate. Okay. Di's voice was low. When my injuries recover, I will definitely teach him a lesson. This Wang Yanhan is really troublesome. His current battle prowess is much stronger than before. If we allow him to continue developing like this, he will definitely become a big problem in the future. That's right. I originally thought that I would be able to use this opportunity to deal with him, or at least make him give up on fighting with us. Who would have thought that I don't know where this brat got the inscription patterns and even heavily injured Wintao? Yin Xiaoming looked at Di Wintao curiously, his eyes full of puzzlement. W. Chapter 42:10. Di Wintao also fell into deep thought. This was also something that he couldn't understand all along. At that time, he was certain that he would definitely succeed. He didn't expect that there would be such a reversal in the end. So much so that he was completely stunned at that time. Although he was the one who launched the sneak attack first, he felt as if he was the one who was sneak attacked. Actually, I don't really understand either. At that time, Wang Yanhan's martial technique seemed to be instantaneous. Logically speaking, such a strong martial technique can't be instantaneous. I also feel that Wang Yanhan's martial technique was executed too quickly. Yin Xiaoming nodded. Did you notice that he condensed a hand seal? Di Wintao shook his head. No. At that time, he only took out his weapon. Immediately after, the martial technique was directly released. I happened to be extremely close to him, so I was heavily injured by him. Following Di Wintao's words, all the cultivators present were dumbfounded. They completely couldn't understand what was going on. It was really too incomprehensible. Logically speaking, this is simply impossible. Could it be that Wang Yanhan is so abnormal that he can actually instantaneously execute martial techniques now? If it's like this, then it's really too terrifying. All the cultivators couldn't help but change their expressions. If that cultivator's martial technique could be instantaneously executed, then it would really be terrifying. During a fight, this was definitely a great weapon. When the opponent executed the martial technique, his martial technique had already been released. In this way, who could compare with him? Don't panic. I feel that this is something impossible. Until now, I have never heard of anyone who can instantaneously execute such a strong martial technique. However, I have heard that some powerful inscriptions can store martial techniques, thus protecting the owner's life in times of danger. Once this was said, everyone was stunned again. Although this explanation was also unbelievable, at least it was more believable than Shun Fa's explanation. Could it be that Wang Yanhan's inscriptions are actually powerful to such an extent? Then his junior sister is really too terrifying. She's completely an inscription master. Di Wintao carefully thought for a moment before nodding. This is indeed very possible. When I fought with him, I discovered that the power of his weapon had increased by a lot. If I didn't judge wrongly, the power has increased by at least 40%. I'm afraid it has reached 50%. This. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air as they looked at Di Wentao's serious face in shock. The degree of improvement was simply too terrifying. Even an inscription drawn by an inscription master might not be able to achieve this. Moreover, this inscription pattern also had the function of storing martial skills. For a moment, everyone felt that Wang Yanhan's weapon had become a treasure. If they killed Wang Yanhan, they would have to get their hands on this weapon. With these two functions, the value of this weapon would increase greatly. No wonder Wang Yanhan said that this inscription pattern was specially made for him by his little junior sister. It seems that it is indeed very suitable for him. We have to get rid of them as soon as possible. Otherwise, with the help of this little junior sister, Wang Yanhan's improvement will be even more shocking. Di Wentao, Yin Xiangming, and the others looked at each other and made up their minds. He definitely couldn't let him continue like this, otherwise it would really be troublesome. Chapter 42:11. Wang Yanhan went to look for Bailey Hongzhuang immediately after knowing the power of this skill. Now, he felt that he had underestimated his junior sister. Little junior sister had helped him so much, so he had to be grateful to her. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door, she saw Wang Yanhan come in with a happy face. As soon as he entered the room, Wang Yanhan said, "Little junior sister, I didn't expect the inscription you gave me to be so powerful." I was stunned. His dark eyes shone with surprise, shining like the stars in the sky. Wang Yanhan was in ecstasy, and it was all shown on his face. Looking at Wang Yanhan's surprised look, Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened. "Senior brother, as long as you like it." "Junior sister, I didn't expect your inscription technique to be so powerful. It's really an eye-opener. Today, it's all thanks to the skill you set in the inscription pattern. Otherwise, I'm afraid the person who would be seriously injured would be me. You've saved my life." Although Wang Yanhan appeared to be very indifferent previously, in fact, he was already extremely excited in his heart long ago. The inscription pattern that his junior sister drew for him not only helped him get back his face, it also saved his life. He didn't know how to thank her. However, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown. "You were almost seriously injured today?" The reason why she designed this skill was to save her life at a crucial moment. But she didn't expect to use it so quickly. Wang Yanhan nodded. "The person who was always my enemy took the chance to sneak attack me. Coincidentally, he had this skill and was caught off guard. He wanted to injure me, but he didn't expect the person who was seriously injured would be him. Junior sister, it's all thanks to you. Senior brother, it seems that the environment you're in is quite dangerous." Her ink-black phoenix eyes were filled with worry and complexity. Although Wang Yanhan's words were light, Bailey Hongzhuang was very clear in her heart that today's situation was extremely dangerous. Danger is unavoidable when you're outside. Wang Yanhan sighed. "Junior sister, you have to be more careful when you're outside. The upper realm is much more dangerous than the lower realm. The slightest bit of carelessness could cost you your life." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "I understand. Junior sister, your inscription technique is so powerful. It's comparable to an inscription master. I was a little worried about your life here, but now it seems that I was worried for nothing." Wang Yanhan rubbed his head and smiled sincerely. With such a skill, there would be countless cultivators who wanted to seek help from Bailey Hongzhuang. From the looks of it now, there was really no need to worry. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "It's my first time here, so I need to be careful." She had many skills, so it wasn't difficult for her to gain a foothold. However, there was only one inscription master in the entire Rome city. It could be seen that he had completely dominated the inscription market. If her appearance broke this situation, it would be very troublesome. However, she wasn't in a hurry. She would take one step at a time. The most important thing was to increase her cultivation. "All right, junior sister, I have a good friend who wants to meet you after knowing about you. He's a friend that I've known for a long time. Are you willing?" Wang Yanhan asked with a smile. Chapter 42:12. After Wan Yanhan had left, Bailey Hongzhuang was preparing to cultivate when she suddenly felt a commotion coming from the chaos ring. Hearing this movement, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes could not help but light up, and she immediately entered the chaos ring. The moment she entered, she saw Xiao He and Xiao Bai's joyful faces. Master, Bai Shi has finally woken up. Bailey Hongzhuang's face instantly lit up with joy, and she immediately noticed that Bai Shi had woken up. Master, you've finally woken up after being unconscious for so many days. Bai Shi has made you worry, Master. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. As long as you've woken up, that's all that matters. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? No, I'm fine, Bai Shi replied joyfully. Master, Bai Shi has indeed broken through, as he said. He's now a Starlight Realm demonic beast. Xiao Hei's face lit up with joy. Even though she wasn't the one who had broken through, she was still very happy to see Bai Shi's improvement. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully sensed Bai Shi's aura, and her eyes lit up. Indeed, he's already broken through to the Starlight Realm. Bai Shi chuckled, seeing that all of you are still safe and sound. I'm simply too happy. Previously, he had been worried that everyone would lose their lives and had been extremely depressed. Now that he had opened his eyes to see everyone standing in front of him, perfectly fine, he felt extremely happy. The previous situation had been a little too dangerous, but fortunately, it was a blessing in disguise for us. You've even broken through the barrier and reached the Starlight Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm, and her bright eyes revealed a faint joy. Breaking through to the Starlight Realm was not an easy task. Under normal circumstances, Bai Shi would have needed some time before he could break through completely. However, he had now taken advantage of this opportunity to break through to the Starlight Realm. By the way, White Lion, do you know what happened earlier? How do we reach the upper realm? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bai Shi. Back then, she wasn't sure about the situation. Now, she could only hope that Bai Shi would understand. I remember it was the White Dragon. White Lion pondered and said, it was too dangerous back then. Perhaps White Dragon woke up instinctively and used its strongest power to bring us away from the center of the explosion. In order to ensure our safety, the White Dragon rushed all the way into the tunnel. Upon hearing Bai Shi's words, Bailey Hongzhuang, Xiao He, and Xiao Bai could not help but look at each other. It seemed that their previous judgment was not wrong. Sure enough, all of this was done by the White Dragon. No wonder the White Dragon's condition is worse than when he was unconscious. He was trying to save us. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at the unconscious White Dragon. At this moment, White Dragon was very weak. It would take a long time for it to recover. She didn't expect White Dragon to save them. When White Dragon woke up, she must treat it well. White Dragon was already severely exhausted. After doing so many things, it really wasn't easy. Xiao Hei's expression changed slightly. When it wakes up, I won't make things difficult for it. Initially, she couldn't stand White Dragon's arrogance. However, now that she was indebted to White Dragon, she naturally had to make some changes. Chapter 42:13. On this day, as Bailey Hongzhuang walked on the streets, Di Beichen's figure involuntarily appeared in her mind. Ever since she met Beichen, although they had been separated, all of her memories were related to him. In her previous life, she had always been used to being alone. It was hard to imagine what it was like to be alone with someone. However, now that Beichen was not by her side, she was not used to it. She even felt that she had almost forgotten how she lived alone. No matter what, she would always think of how Beichen would look when he was by her side and what he would say to her. She missed Di Beichen's embrace, missed his warmth, missed his doting gaze, and missed his charming voice. As long as Di Beichen was by her side, no matter where she was, she would not feel lonely or afraid. Now that Beichen was not by her side, she missed him so much, especially in the dead of night. She hoped that Beichen would appear in front of her. It was a pity that no one knew when the next time they would meet would be. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking along the way, Bai Shi's voice suddenly rang out. Master, it seems like someone is following us. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately woke up from her thoughts. Her clear eyes immediately became calm and serious as she carefully observed the situation behind her. As expected, someone was following her. We've just arrived in the upper realm. Logically speaking, no one should recognize us. What's going on? Bailey Hongzhuang was secretly puzzled, but she did not show it on her face. This was really too strange. In her current situation, no one should be watching her. However, the other party had made her their target. There was definitely something fishy about this. The only possibility, I'm afraid it has something to do with Senior. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. Apart from this, she could not think of any other possibility. Wen Tao, according to the information we've received, this woman should be Wang Yanhan's junior. During the time you were recuperating, Wang Yanhan only saw one woman. It was her. Yan Xiaoming said. Wen Tao's gaze locked onto Bailey Hongzhuang. This woman is so young. I really don't believe that she's an inscription master. I also feel that Wang Yanhan might be deliberately lying to us. Wen Tao's expression was complicated. After thinking for a while, he shook his head. Wang Yanhan's family background is not rich. It's already not easy for him to maintain his own cultivation with spirit stones. He doesn't have the money to hire an inscription master. After thinking about it, this is the only possibility. Then what should we do? Let's go find the so-called little junior sister to investigate and see if what Wang Yanhan said is true or not. What if it's true? Wang Yanhan's, Wen Tao's eyes, Wen Tao's, Wang Yanhan's eyes. Wen Tao's eyes were cold and ruthless. He understood that in terms of cultivation talent, he was slightly inferior to Wang Yanhan. The reason why he could always compete with Wang Yanhan was that his family background was richer than Wang Yanhan's. If Wang Yanhan also had enough cultivation resources, then surpassing him would really be within his expectations. He could not let this happen. Chapter 42:14. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the 5 people standing in front of her, blocking her way. The man in the lead was wearing a pine green brocade robe embroidered with a few black and silver bamboos. His eyes were half narrowed, and his gaze was cold and full of hostility. His eyes quietly revealed a trace of killing intent. The 4 cultivators by his side all took half a step back from his side, as if they were following his lead. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but slightly frown. Her dark and clear phoenix eyes were restrained and deep. It seemed that the other party didn't come with good intentions. When Bailey Hongzhuang was sizing up Wen Tao and the others, they were also sizing up Bailey Hongzhuang. The woman in front of them was less than 25 years old. Her appearance was above average. Although she was not bad, she was not outstanding in the upper realm where beauties were everywhere. However, the white and red demonic beast beside her was majestic. Every step it took was majestic. At this moment, the killing intent in the demonic beast's eyes was even more awe-inspiring. There were also people with good eyesight. Naturally, they could tell at a glance that this demonic beast was not ordinary. It seems that this woman is really not simple. Otherwise, she wouldn't have such a powerful contracted beast. Wen Tao secretly thought. He really didn't expect that Wang Yanhan, who didn't seem to have any family background, would have such a junior sister. After knowing that the other party came with bad intentions, Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude naturally became cold. Good dogs don't block the way. The cold voice revealed a bit of disgust and impatience. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly looked at the people in front of her, but her mind was thinking about how to get out of this situation. Wen Tao and the others, who were originally preparing to find trouble, were dumbfounded when they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang dared to take the initiative to find trouble. Their eyes were full of astonishment. Oh, Wen Tao, this little girl is really not simple. She is only one person, but she dares to take the initiative to challenge us. Yan Xiaoming was so angry that he laughed. They had been running amok in Rome and City for so long, but they had never encountered such a situation. Wen Tao also sneered, his cold and stern gaze locked onto Bailey Hongzhuang's pretty face. You're Wang Yanhan's junior sister, right? All of you came here in such a grandiose manner. Naturally, you've already confirmed my identity. Why do you have to ask again? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly, and her cold gaze revealed a trace of ridicule. You should be that Di Wintao who often finds trouble with my senior brother, but is ruthlessly stepped on by him. Although it was a question, Bailey Hongzhuang was very sure. The other party's appearance was exactly the same as what Wang Yanhan had described to her previously. The corners of Di Wintao's lips twitched slightly. His high and mighty attitude could no longer be maintained at this moment. The corners of his lips parted slightly, but his expression became even more ferocious. What a sharp tongue. I just don't know what it will feel like when I tear it apart. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were as cold as ice. You can feel it for yourself. Ha! Di Wintao suddenly chuckled twice. Originally, I planned to give you a good warning today and let you suffer a little so that you know that you can't help just anyone. But now I've changed my mind. I want to kill you and leave Wang Yanhan alone and without help. You think too much, Bailey Hongzhuang said indifferently. Chapter 42:15. Even without me, you're still not my senior brother's match. Bailey Hongzhuang's gaze was indifferent and distant. This fellow in front of her was a little funny. Before she had appeared, Di Wintao had no way of defeating Wang Yanhan. Now, he was pushing all the blame onto her. It was as if Di Wintao would have been able to defeat Wang Yanhan without her appearance. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Wintao could no longer control his emotions and flew into a rage. In the past, he only felt that Wang Yanhan was very hateful. Now, he realized that this woman in front of him also had the ability to anger people to death with her words. Do you know the consequences of offending me now? Di Wintao's words were full of threats. Cultivators from the lower realm, like you're all equally lowly and laughable. We're lowly just because we're from the lower realm? Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a mocking smile. Her gaze was sharp and bright. At least, we've reached this place through our own hard work. In comparison, you've lived in the upper realm since you were young. Why are you still not my senior brother's match? If I were you, I would bury this in my heart and not say it out loud. Otherwise, wouldn't it be equivalent to asking for humiliation? However, I forgot that a brainless person like you would definitely not be able to see through this. She and Di Wintao did not belong to the same organization. Hence, she did not need to have the same misgivings as Wang Yanhan. Furthermore, the other party had come to find trouble with her. No matter if she spoke kind words or opposed him with equal harshness, the result would be the same. Since that was the case, she might as well teach this fellow a lesson. You. Di Wintao pointed his index finger at Bailey Hongzhuang. He felt that he was about to explode from anger. He had lived for so long and had never met such a sharp-tongued fellow. She was simply too hateful. However, in the face of the other party's words, she was actually unable to refute a single word. Yan Xiangming and the rest were stunned. Although they were used to being arrogant, they were no match for the other party in terms of eloquence. What a sharp tongue. If I don't teach you a lesson today, I'm afraid you won't know the immensity of heaven and earth. In the next moment, Di Wintao waved his right hand, and a brown violent earth bear suddenly appeared in front of everyone. With just one command, the wild earth bear saw Bailey Hongzhuang as its target and charged towards her without hesitation. Roar! The wild earth bear's roar came from its mouth, but its heavy body moved extremely quickly. It opened its bloody mouth, as if it wanted to tear Bailey Hongzhuang to shreds. When the onlookers saw this scene, they couldn't bear to see it. Needless to say, this girl was weak and came from the lower realm. She would probably die on the streets soon. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the ferocious wild earth bear in front of her, but her expression was extremely calm. It was as if the wild earth bear didn't exist at all. When Di Wintao and the rest saw Bailey Hongzhuang, they secretly mocked her in their hearts. Things had already come to this, and she was still pretending to be indifferent. She wouldn't even know how she died later on. However, just as the wild earth bear was about to attack Bailey Hongzhuang, the white and red demonic beast beside the ladder suddenly moved. Chapter 42:16. Please enter the text. Dong. With a dull sound, a round head rolled on the ground and finally stopped at Di Wentao's feet. Looking at the familiar head at his feet, Di Wentao could not help but be dumbfounded. For a moment, he could not even react. Wild Earth Bear? How is this possible? Yin Xiangming and the others were also dumbfounded when they saw this scene. What was going on just now? They had been with Di Wentao for so long and knew the power of his contract beast very well. However, they did not expect that the other party's contract beast would bite off the wild Earth Bear's head with just one move. Wasn't this too frightening? The cultivators present were also dumbfounded. This situation was completely different from what they had expected. They thought that the head rolling on the ground would be Bailey Hongzhuang's, but they did not expect it to be the wild Earth Bear's head. What kind of beast is this lady's contract beast? Isn't this too frightening? No wonder she was so calm before. So she had already thought of a way to deal with it. I heard that Di Wentao has always been proud of his contract beast. I didn't expect the wild Earth Bear to die. This is really a big blow to him. Everyone looked at each other. To cultivators, nurturing a contract beast was extremely taxing. They did not expect it to die. This meant that all his years of hard work had been wasted. As expected, Di Wentao stared blankly at the familiar head on the ground. He was dumbfounded and his face turned pale. On one hand, this pale face was because his contract beast had died and he had suffered a certain backlash. On the other hand, he did not dare to believe that his contract beast had died just like that. This was too hard to accept. How could this be? Di Wentao's gaze shifted to Baishur. Although he had felt that Baishur was not simple, he did not expect it to be so powerful. One must know that his wild Earth Bear was an extremely powerful existence among contract beasts. Thinking back to when he had this wild Earth Bear, who knew how many cultivators were envious of his good luck. However, it had died just like that. His eyes suddenly turned red, and he felt that he could not breathe. When he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, his eyes were about to crack. You dare to kill my contract beast. A thick murderous aura suddenly exploded and enveloped Bailey Hongzhuang in this murderous aura. It was terrifying. However, in the face of Di Wentao's murderous aura, Bailey Hongzhuang was still as calm as ever, as if everything had nothing to do with her. You wanted to kill me. What's so strange about me killing your contract beast? As a cultivator, life and death are common. You should have been mentally prepared for the death of your contracted beast. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's light words, Di Wentao's body trembled with anger. She had clearly done such a thing, but Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance made him even angrier. Kill her. At this moment, Di Wentao could no longer control his emotions. This Bailey Hongzhuang deserved to die. Now, he did not care about bullying the weak with numbers. He only knew that he must kill Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, he would not be able to vent his anger. Chapter 42:17. The earlier scene had shocked them. At the same time, they knew that the woman in front of them was not easy to deal with. If they were not careful, they might fail miserably at such an easy task. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Wentao and the other four who had surrounded her. She was secretly calculating in her mind. Earlier on, when Baishur had attacked, she had already sensed the strength of Di Wentao and the others. If she had not judged wrongly, Di Wentao should be at the 6th level of the Star Ray realm. The other cultivators were slightly weaker than him, but they were all at the 5th level of the Star Ray realm. After knowing this, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed inwardly. The upper realm was indeed much stronger than the lower realm. In the lower realm, cultivators of the Star Ray realm and above were already very few in number. She did not expect that there were so many cultivators of the Star Ray realm here. Cultivators of the Star Ray realm and above were also many in number here. It was truly terrifying. We had originally decided not to cause trouble. However, Trouble just had to come knocking on our door. Xiao Hei sighed inwardly. As they had just arrived here, they were alone and weak. Hence, they had previously discussed that they had to be careful and avoid causing trouble as much as possible. Who would have thought that after staying here for such a short period of time, something like this would happen? They could not even pass their days peacefully. We have no choice. We can only go all out now. Xiao Bai's eyes were filled with viciousness. Many times, trouble was unavoidable. Even if they could hide for a while, they could not hide forever. Hence, they might as well face it head-on. Master, the other party is very powerful. If we were to fight them head-on, I'm afraid that we are no match for them. Bai Shi reminded. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I understand. Hence, we can only think of other ways. Right from the beginning, she had not planned to fight them head-on. With such a difference in strength, she would not be a match for them at all. Hence, they had to find other ways. Just as Wang Yanhan was cultivating in the room, there was suddenly a series of hurried knocks on the door. Wang Yanhan, are you there? Open the door. Something big has happened. Wang Yanhan hurriedly opened the door. The moment he opened the door, he saw Yi Haomiao standing outside with an anxious look. What happened? Wang Yanhan frowned and asked. Yi Haomiao grabbed Wang Yanhan's hand and said, It's urgent. Follow me first. I'll tell you as we walk. Although Wang Yanhan was full of doubts, he still walked forward based on his trust in Yi Haomiao. I just heard that Di Wentao was very unconvinced because he was seriously injured by you, so you want to find your little junior sister for revenge. Now that they've been out for a while, if we don't hurry over, something might happen to your little junior sister. Hearing Yi Haomiao's words, Wang Yanhan's face suddenly turned ugly. What? This Di Wentao is so despicable. He has always been like this. Now that he doesn't dare to take the initiative to cause trouble in front of you, he can only think of other ways to make you unhappy. Let's go. Wang Yanhan rushed in the direction of the inn at his fastest speed. He was already very anxious in his heart. If something happened to little junior sister, then he would never be able to forgive himself. Chapter 42:18. Just as Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao were rushing all the way to the inn where Bailey Hongzhuang was staying, they found that a group of people had gathered together on the way, as if they were watching the fun. Just as they were about to pass by, suddenly, a voice from inside attracted their attention. This is my little junior sister's voice. Wang Yanhan's gaze changed, and he immediately stopped and walked towards a crowd. Yi Haomiao followed closely behind Wang Yanhan and said, I seem to have heard Di Wentao's voice. Little junior sister. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about how to escape, she suddenly heard a voice from behind. She couldn't help but turn her head and saw Wang Yanhan and another man that she had never seen before walking over together. However, the same thing was that both of their faces were filled with deep concern. She immediately thought of Yi Haomiao that Wang Yanhan had mentioned to her before. Thinking about it, this person should be him. Senior brother. Wang Yanhan immediately stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang and glared at Di Wentao. Di Wentao, if you have any dissatisfaction, come at me directly. What kind of ability are you to make a move on my junior sister behind my back? Di Wentao and the others obviously didn't expect Wang Yanhan and Yi Haomiao to come back, and their expressions instantly changed. Originally, it couldn't be easier for them to kill Bailey Hongzhuang. They didn't expect that the other party had 2 more people and the situation had changed a little. Wang Yanhan, I didn't know that she was your junior sister. Di Wentao's expression was cold, and the words that came out of his mouth were extremely shameless. Hearing that, Wang Yanhan chuckled. If you didn't know that she was my junior sister, then why did you find trouble with her? Since things have already come to this, why do you still have to hide it? I usually find trouble with whoever I want to find trouble with. What does it have to do with you? Look clearly, she killed my contracted beast. Now I want to kill her to avenge my contracted beast. What's wrong with that? Di Wentao's voice was extremely cold. He was simply about to explode from anger. The contract beast that he had painstakingly nurtured for so many years was gone just like that. Even now, he was still unwilling to accept it. Following Di Wintao's words, Wan Yinhan and Yi Haomiao finally noticed the berserk earth bear's corpse. When they saw him earlier, the two of them had some doubts in their hearts. It was only after hearing Di Wintao's affirmation that they were certain. Immediately, they were shocked in their hearts. They knew how much Di Wintao treasured his contract beast, but they didn't expect it to die now. Wan Yinhan couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. His slightly raised eyebrows were obviously asking silently, "Did you really kill him?" He made the first move. Bailey Hongzhuang said, "He wanted this wild earth bear to kill me, but he didn't expect it to be killed by my contract beast instead." After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's affirmative answer, Wan Yinhan's heart skipped a beat. The way he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang changed again. Previously, he only knew that his junior sister's inscription technique was very powerful, but he didn't know that his junior sister's contract beast was also very powerful. To be able to kill the wild earth bear, this combat strength was very shocking. A gulp. Yi Haomiao also swallowed a mouthful of saliva, his expression filled with disbelief. Too terrifying. Not to mention Di Wintao. Even he couldn't help but feel heartache for the other party. This kind of loss would probably make people have the impulse to faint. Chapter 42:19. Wan Yinhan, how do you think this matter should be resolved? Di Wintao looked at Wan Yinhan coldly. At this moment, he was already regretting to the extreme. If he had known that there would be such an outcome, he definitely would not have let the wild earth bear take action. With their abilities, it was absolutely not difficult to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. He only wanted to make use of this opportunity to let Bailey Hongzhuang feel that he was an existence that the other party could not resist at all. He did not expect that such an unforeseen event would occur. Facing Di Wintao's questioning, Wan Yinhan's expression was still calm. Di Wintao, don't think that you can distort the truth just because you have a loss now. My little junior sister is only here alone. As long as you use your brain, you will know that she definitely would not take the initiative to provoke you. It must be you who found trouble. Hence my little junior sister's contracted beast took action to teach the wild earth bear a lesson. Di Wintao, don't you often do this kind of thing? Wan Yinhan's words were undoubtedly adding fuel to the fire, yet it was the truth. In Wan Yinhan's hands, Di Wintao indeed often did this kind of thankless thing. Now that the other party mentioned it, he was also incomparably depressed in his heart. Yi Haomiao laughed without giving face. Ever since he taught Di Wintao a lesson a few days ago, Wan Yinhan's personality changed a lot. The current him no longer tolerated Wan Yinhan. On the contrary, he would step on him whenever he could. One had to say that this kind of feeling was indeed quite satisfying. Wan Yinhan, don't think that you can be so arrogant because you won against me the last time. If you can't give me an explanation for this matter today, then we will definitely not be done. Explanation? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered and raised her eyes. What explanation do you want? Unless you die today, otherwise, I will definitely not take this lying down. Di Wintao turned to look at Wan Yinhan and said, Wan Yinhan, I'll leave my words here. You have to think carefully. However, facing Di Wintao's threat, Wan Yinhan did not even consider and directly said, impossible. When these words came out, Di Wintao's face turned black once again. A straightforward rejection undoubtedly made him lose face even more. Fine. Di Wintao clenched his teeth. You said it yourself. Today, we will fight to the death here and see who will have the last laugh. Hearing that, Wan Yinhan couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. He felt a little guilty too. He didn't want to let these things affect Bailey Hongzhuang, but he didn't expect that in the end, he would still bring her into a dispute. He felt very helpless. Looking at Wan Yinhan's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang already understood what he was thinking. She immediately said, Senior, don't worry. Let's fight. When it came to fighting, Bailey Hongzhuang had never been afraid. Previously, it was indeed very difficult for her to deal with the 5 people in front of her by herself. However, with the addition of Wan Yinhan and Yi Haomiao, the situation was different. At the very least, their chances of winning had increased significantly. Little junior sister, they have the advantage in numbers, and you've just arrived in the upper realm. I'm afraid this competition will be, it's all right. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, indicating to Wang Yanhan that he could rest assured. Just as they were conversing, Di Wentao clearly had no interest in continuing to wait. He immediately said, "Attack." At his command, Yin Xiangming and the others attacked without hesitation. Chapter 42:20. Seeing the other party's actions, Wang Yanhan, Bailey Hongzhuang, and Yi Haomiao all looked at each other. Hardening their hearts, they immediately went forward. Looking at the current situation, they had no other choice but to fight. Wang Yanhan immediately went to meet Di Wentao. At this moment, he already hated the latter to the extreme. Although he hated Di Wentao before, at least this fellow had always been targeting him alone. That was fine. But now, he even brought all these conflicts to his little junior sister. This was what he couldn't accept the most. Di Wentao was completely taken out by him. If Yi Haomiao didn't happen to know this news and immediately came to inform him, he really couldn't imagine what would have happened if they had arrived late. Once he thought of that possibility, he hated that he couldn't directly kill Di Wentao. Speaking of which, he was still too soft-hearted. He always felt that both sides belonged to the same faction. If he directly killed him, it wouldn't be too appropriate. However, looking at it now, all of this was meaningless. Towards a damned fellow like Di Wentao, he should directly take his life and eliminate all future troubles. Wang Yanhan, today, there should be an end between the two of us. Di Wentao's gaze was gloomy and his voice was even colder. Only he knew how much he hated Wang Yanhan. Originally, he already occupied the position of eldest senior brother. Everyone followed his lead and was extremely respectful. However, it was this fellow from the lower realm who didn't even enter his eyes at the beginning that climbed all the way to where he was now. He even snatched away his position as leader. Now that he thought about it, he really regretted not directly killing this fellow back then. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so troublesome. Wang Yanhan stared coldly at Di Wentao. His voice was icy. Indeed, there should be an end between the two of us. Do you know how loathsome you are? Di Wentao's lips curled into a cold smile. A fellow like you should stay in the lower realm forever. Why are you vainly trying to come to the upper realm? That's my business. You don't need to worry. Ever since I came here, you've been targeting me everywhere. However, after targeting for so long, there's still no result. The reason why you're unhappy with me is that you're afraid of being outdone by me, Wang Yanhan said mockingly. Di Wentao's expression changed when he heard Wang Yanhan's mocking words, and he said in a stern voice, "I'll definitely kill you today and make you disappear from the upper realms." If you had said this in the past, I would have believed you. But now, I'm afraid you no longer have the ability to do so. As Wang Yanhan's voice fell, the two swords collided. Ding, ding, ding. Sparks flew in all directions as vigorous yuan power violently gushed out. Both of them had a star ray rank 6 cultivation. At this moment, the momentum of their collision was extremely shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao each went up against a cultivator. However, since there were 4 cultivators left, the other 2 also targeted them. The expressions of the 4 of them were very indifferent and proud. Obviously, they had already determined that Bailey Hongzhuang and her companion were no match for them. Chapter 42:21. In the past, Wang Yanhan and Di Wentao were equally matched. Now that Wang Yanhan had the help of inscriptions, it would be more difficult for Di Wentao to deal with him. Hearing that, the other cultivators nodded in agreement. Go ahead, leave this to us. After Yin Xiaoming left, there were only 3 cultivators left in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Yi Haomiao. Miss Bailey. Yi Haomiao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a serious expression. These 3 people are all in the Starlight Stage 5. I'm afraid it'll be difficult for you to deal with them. Why don't you stay closer to me? If there's any danger, I can take care of you. Bailey Hongzhuang turned her gaze. When she saw the worried expression on Yi Haomiao's face, a smile appeared in her eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Yi. I'll be more careful." As she spoke, Bailey Hongzhuang said to Bai Shi, Xiao He, and Xiao Bai, "Try to hold back one of the cultivators. I'll deal with the other cultivator as soon as possible. You just need to hold them back for a while. Is that okay?" The other party was a Starlight Stage 5 cultivator. She had to be more careful. However, if she was only facing one person, she believed that she could end the battle quickly. "No problem." The three beasts immediately replied. "All right." In the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang went up against another cultivator. At the same time, Yi Haomiao had already started fighting with the other two cultivators. From Yi Haomiao's point of view, Bailey Hongzhuang was Wanyan Han's junior sister. She had just arrived in the upper realm and must have just broken through to the Starlight Stage. What's more, Bailey Hongzhuang had been seriously injured before. Although she had recovered now, she had not yet recovered to her previous state. Hence, he had to shoulder the greatest pressure. However, just as he attacked, he was surprised to find that Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast had come to help. He was instantly shocked. When he came to his senses, he could not help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. He instantly had a good impression of her. Wanyan Han's junior sister was indeed a very good person. However, not long after, Yi Haomiao did not have the mood to think about this, because he was shocked to find that Bailey Hongzhuang's contracted beast had broken through to the Starlight Stage. A beast of the Starlight Stage? Yi Haomiao was dumbfounded. It was extremely difficult for a contracted beast to break through to the stage. Similarly, it was also very difficult for a contracted beast to break through to the stage. It was extremely difficult to nurture a contracted beast of the Starlight Stage. Was a beast. Not only a beast had to have a realm beast, a beast had a Starlight Stage, and Hongzhan Han. Di Wentao's violent earth bear was already very famous here, because that contracted beast had already reached the 8th level of the Purple Realm. Was a strong Hongzhuang with the stage, Starlight Stage. If a contracted beast could break through to the stage, Starlight Stage, its value would be greatly different. It was equivalent to having greater potential and a limitless future. Bailey Hongzhuang had just broken through to the stage, Starlight Stage, not long ago. Her contracted beast had also reached the stage, Starlight Stage. This was truly shocking. Not only Yi Haomiao, but his two opponents were also dumbfounded. No wonder this contracted beast could kill the Berserk Earth Bear. It's actually a contracted beast of the stage, Starlight Stage. Damn, I'm afraid only an Inscription Master has the ability to nurture such a contracted beast. Chapter 42-22. Even so, Di Wentao could only raise the violent Earth Bear's cultivation to the 8th level of the Purple Realm. It would be extremely difficult to advance further. Although Di Wentao had always hoped that his violent Earth Bear could break through to the Starlight Realm, they were very clear that this was absolutely not an easy matter. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was able to nurture a Starlight Realm contracted beast. Although the difference between the two seemed to be only 2 levels, in reality, this gap was really not an ordinary kind of big. After a short moment of shock, the battle between the two sides started again. Since today had already come to this point, it was obvious that they would not rest until one of them was dead. Little beauty, if you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being Wanyan Han's junior sister. You just had to help him draw inscriptions, so you can only die here today. Don't blame me. If you want to blame someone, blame your senior brother. He dragged you down. Qian Ming sneered. Hearing the other party's ridicule, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but sneer and said, "There's something that I think you might be mistaken about. The one dying here today is not me, but you. You should remember clearly that this is because of Di Wentao that you ended up like this." Qian Ming's expression changed. As expected, you have a sharp tongue. I want to see if you can still be so proud when you're about to die. Go ahead and try. Bailey Hongzhuang said coldly. Boom. Both sides' essence power surged out at the first moment. When Qianming discovered that Bailey Hongzhuang was a Starlight Realm Level 2, a trace of shock flashed across his eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang was really too young. When he was so young, he did not seem to have reached the other party's cultivation. For a moment, he suddenly felt that the lower realm's cultivators were somewhat terrifying. No matter if it was Bailey Hongzhuang in front of him or Wang Yanhan who was currently fighting, their talent and potential were both very terrifying. I admit that your talent is very shocking, but unfortunately, you're going to die in my hands today. Just after Qianming said this, Bailey Hongzhuang snorted coldly, and the blood chi field was instantly displayed. A faint smell of blood pervaded the air, and that white figure was quietly dyed with a trace of blood color. Following that, the blood color gradually covered, and her aura also continuously rose. 3rd rank, Astral Radiance. 4th level, Astral Radiance. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang easily raise her aura to Star Radiance rank 4, not only Qianming, but all the cultivators present were dumbfounded. For a moment, he couldn't wrap his head around it. He couldn't figure out what method Bailey Hongzhuang had used to directly increase her cultivation. Wow, I really didn't expect this woman to have such ability. It's really amazing. How did his cultivation increase so much all of a sudden? Previously, there was still a huge gap, but now, the gap is narrowed by a lot. I didn't think that the cultivators of the lower realms would have so many tricks up their sleeves. Now that I've seen it today, it's truly amazing. For a time, the way everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but change. They were extremely shocked in their hearts. Yi Haomiao and Wang Yanhan also noticed the change in Bailey Hongzhuang. They were shocked. They didn't expect her to have such ability. Previously, they had underestimated Bailey Hongzhuang. However, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't done with her blood aura field. Her killing aura field suddenly exploded. Chapter 42-23. This kind of murderous intent seemed to come from a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. The thick murderous intent almost condensed into a substance. Everyone only felt a gust of cold air enter their bodies, following which the fear in their hearts magnified infinitely. When Qianming looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, he only felt that the latter's figure suddenly became taller and bigger. In his heart, she actually became an undefeatable existence. Terrifying. Too terrifying. Qianming's pupils shrank. A thought of retreating actually arose in his heart. He didn't dare to fight against the other party at all. The influence of this murderous intent was really too great. Under Bailey Hongzhuang's control, it directly enveloped Di Wintao and the other 4 people. Di Wintao originally wasn't Wang Yanhan's match. However, with Yin Xiaoming's help, he was able to maintain his position and not be defeated. Suddenly, he felt a terrifying murderous intent directly enveloping his entire person. Immediately after, his body instantly stiffened. That eerie chill made his back shiver and his movements became sluggish. After Wang Yanhan discovered the change in Di Wintao, he immediately released a ruthless move. In a battle between cultivators of similar strength, one had to grab hold of the other party's mistake. Once it was done, then the other party wouldn't have the power to counterattack. Bam! Wang Yanhan's move landed solidly on Di Wintao's body. Immediately after, Di Wintao's figure fell heavily onto the ground. Puffed. Di Wintao spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he didn't look at Wang Yanhan immediately. Instead, he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's position. This was because he clearly felt that the aura just now came from Bailey Hongzhuang. Even at this time, that surging murderous intent was still so obvious. He also finally understood why Bailey Hongzhuang appeared so indifferent when he released his murderous intent previously. It turned out that he was simply displaying his slight skill in front of an expert. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's murderous intent, what he released previously was nothing. However, he completely couldn't understand. Bailey Hongzhuang was so young. How could she possess such a terrifying murderous intent? One had to have experienced something like this to be able to release such killing intent. Wang Yanhan, and Yi Haomiao also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock. They could feel that under the suppression of Bailey Hongzhuang's killing intent, the battle strength of Di Wintao and the others had been greatly weakened. Clearly, they had been affected. Such a skill was truly terrifying. Gulp. Yi Haomiao gulped again. He felt that he shouldn't underestimate Wan Yin Han's little junior sister. It was only when he noticed Qian Ming, who was lying at Bailey Hongzhuang's feet, that he realized how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang was. To be able to fight someone 3 levels higher than him, this was the first person he had ever met. Yin Xiangming and the others were all dumbfounded. This scene was beyond all of their expectations. For a moment, they even found it hard to believe. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang had acted so calmly and fearlessly in the face of so many of them. It turned out that she was also a powerful character. They had been blind previously. Bailey Hongzhuang stepped on Qianming to make him behave. Then, she turned to look at Wan Yanhan and said, "Senior brother, how should we deal with this?" Although she really wanted to kill this fellow directly, this fellow and Wan Yanhan belonged to the same faction after all. She didn't want to put Wan Yanhan in a difficult position because of her momentary pleasure. Therefore, the final decision was left to Wan Yanhan. Chapter 42-24. Qianming was so depressed that he almost cried. This was a battle that he thought he would definitely win. He didn't know how it turned into such an ending. Now, he was directly stepped on by Bailey Hongzhuang. He had already lost face to the extreme. However, the other party's sword was on his neck. He didn't doubt that as long as he moved slightly, the other party's sword would directly cut his throat. For a moment, he could only pin his hopes on Wan Yanhan. Bailey Hongzhuang was Wan Yanhan's junior sister. As long as Wan Yanhan didn't want to kill him, he believed that Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely agree. Wan Yanhan looked at Qianming and Di Wintao, who fell on the ground, and then looked at the other 3 cultivators who had already stopped moving. Thoughts flew in his mind. "Wan Yanhan, we are from the same sect. You can't kill me." Qianming saw that Wan Yanhan didn't speak for a long time and couldn't help but become anxious. If it was in the past, he didn't have to worry at all because Wan Yanhan wouldn't kill them. However, Wan Yanhan's personality had obviously changed a lot recently. He didn't dare to be so confident. He won't dare to do it. Di Wintao's expression was certain. Even if Wan Yanhan pointed a weapon at him, his expression was still very indifferent. It was as if he wasn't worried at all. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't speak. She just looked at Wan Yanhan indifferently. However, she felt somewhat helpless. Senior brother's personality was really too indecisive. If not, Di Wintao and the others wouldn't dare to find trouble with him time and time again. If it was her, she would have given the other party a fierce blow from the beginning. The other party would naturally stop. This was because he had always been restrained. That was why the other party had become like this. Because they didn't have to worry about the consequences, they had no scruples. However, she also understood that the reason why Wan Yanhan became like this was probably because he had been alone and without help after coming to the upper level. As time passed, he lost his previous decisiveness and ruthlessness. A person's personality would change according to the environment. Wan Yanhan was able to obtain such a position in Penglai Palace in the past. She didn't need to think to know that he was definitely not a person with such a personality. This matter was also a kind of opportunity for him. It would depend on what choice he made. If he still chose to let them go like this, she would not object either. She would just be a little disappointed. Wan Yanhan was originally hesitating, but after hearing Di Wintao's arrogant words, a kind of anger rose in his heart for no reason. The other party seemed to have seen through him and was certain that he had no guts. This feeling made him extremely unhappy. He had never been such a person. If it was in the past, he would have killed the other party without hesitation. However, ever since he came here, he was affected by the surrounding environment and gradually lost his courage. At this moment, he suddenly noticed a flash of disappointment in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. His heart was suddenly shocked, and he seemed to understand at this moment. This matter did not only concern him, but also Bailey Hongzhuang. According to Bailey Hongzhuang's character, she would definitely not let the other party off. She only left the matter to him for his sake. If he let them go just like that, wouldn't he disappoint little junior sister? He couldn't do that. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.